Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is Cee Certified Brewhead, and welcome to episode 120 of Beer and Other Shit Podcast Adjunct series. We have a banger tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Very excited for this one. This has been a brewery that I have only been around for a bit, but I've only discovered them in a bit more depth over the last few months. So I'm excited to get into the beers, into the convo, and learn all about it. But of course, as always, this episode of BAOS is brought to you by Manscaped, our good mates. Now, breaking news, Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right, they are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with a brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit that I have to my right. From a beard trim to a fresh shave, the technology behind the Beard Hedger Pro Kit allows you to shape your signature beard look. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match your carpet. That's amazing. By going to manscaped.com and using the code BAOS for 20% off and free shipping. Now, this right here, this is the beard trimmer. I love that it is all completely cordless and the battery lasts ages, and also with this one, you can even do it in the shower. You don't even have to completely keep it dry, which is wicked. Now, it's time to tame your mane. No one likes a weird beard, so say goodbye to all your stubble trouble with Manscaped's Pro Beard Kit. It all starts with the Beard Hedger, this bad boy. Now, this thing is a juggernaut of fixing faces. First off, this cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel, which is this bad boy at the back right here, and that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard. So just this one here, you don't even have to take it off. And so no more messy drawers for the extra add-ons. That's right, face grooming doesn't need to be hard. Get 20 different beard lengths in just one guard. Plus it's waterproof, as I said, so you can shave in the shower to avoid all that hair in a sink. The titanium-coated T-blade, which you can't really see, it's under here. It's tough on hair, but smooth on your face, leading to single-stroke efficiency, and that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. The Pro Kit doesn't end there, though. They have created 4 dermatologist-tested formulations for your post-trim care. First, there's the beard shampoo and conditioner, which is this little fella right here. You need to remember all your hair is different. Your beard hair is more coarse and easy to damage than all the hair on your head. That's why the kit has made shampoo and conditioner specially designed to moisturize, reduce ingrown hairs, replace natural oils, and promote beard health. Now, next, the kit has Manscaped's beard oil, which I'm a big fan of. Love this stuff. An essential piece for your main facial accessory. No one wants a guy whose beard is brittle and dry. Facts. The oil relieves dryness both on the beard and the skin beneath while adding a little shimmer and shine, making you look extra fine. Cap off the kit with the beard balm. One of these little bad boys. A pomade that shapes, styles, moisturizes, and tames for a sculpted look to attract any fellows or dames, whatever you're into. The Pro Beard Kit also comes with 3 free gifts: a beard brush, the comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress. Kind of like, it's very convenient. You can give it a little 1-2 right before the pod, you know the vibes. So, get 20% off and free shipping with the code BAOS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code BAOS at manscaped.com. Beard Hedger, 1 stroke, 1 guard, 20 lengths. And with that, it is time for the pod. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a great one, like I said. An episode I've been wanting to do for a while. Heard a bunch about this brewery, started to test out some of the stuff at Durand, my favorite store here in Hamilton, and gosh darn it, I was impressed. So I'm very excited to get into it. So guys, please welcome Greg from Counterpart and Nathan from NathanDoesBeer in the building. What's up, boys? Welcome. Chilling.
Welcome, Greg.
Thanks for having me.
Mate, genuine pleasure. Like I said, excited to chat with you and to hear all about the brewery. You guys have quite a reputation, and like I said, been getting into your stout series, the one you dropped recently, which was fantastic, the 9th Life. And I know the haze bombs are consistent and killer. So we're going to get into some gems this evening. Shall we crack a beer and get this started?
Let's do it.
Alrighty. So tell us what we're starting with, man.
Yeah, so we're gonna start with Full Circle. It's a dry hopped Kölsch, hop with Callista's German hop. Floral, citrusy, crisp, super easy drinking. Probably a little bit more bitter than your average Kölsch, but yeah, one that I like a lot.
Hell yeah, man. Dry hop cultures are something that I don't recall seeing a ton of. This is pretty unique. Is that something you guys would agree with, or am I boosting a bit there?
Yeah, like when we did our Italian Pilsner, that was the first time we kind of played around with dry hopping a lager. This isn't a lager, it's a Kölsch, but same kind of idea. And yeah,
Yes.
it's a really delicate ad. You're just trying to drive a little bit more aromatics.
Which is cool though. I feel like cultures tend to get left, maybe left to their own devices just to do their thing. Whereas I guess the dry hops tend to be lagers, pilsners, and things like that. So it's cool to see a dry hop culture. Nate, have you ever seen one before?
Yeah, the only other one that I can think of, Sawdust City for a little while had a series of dry hopped Kolsches like that, and they did a few different like hop features like for that. But that's the only other one I can think of, and that's also going back a few years at this point.
Gotcha. So I guess I'm relatively on the mark there that it isn't the most common style, which is super fun, man. I love that. So, shall we cheers?
Yeah, let's do it.
Get it in, you boys.
Cheers.
That is delightful. It is pretty bitter. Now, this is my first beer of the night, and I feel like my palate is always a little swayed. You want to talk us through it?
Yeah, so with our crispy beers, like we generally go a little bit more on the bitter side. I really like more kind of North American lagers that usually have more pronounced hop profile. But yeah, just really crisp, clean, easy drinking. Yeah, in terms of the flavor like hop profile, yeah, citrusy, a little spicy, floral, and yeah, do late kettle additions, a little bit of a dry hop, really just to bring those those hoppy notes to the forefront. Kind of light, crackery malt bill. Yeah, relatively uncomplicated. It's simple, easy drinking. But enough going on to to make it somewhat intriguing.
Love it. What was the
Yeah,
hop again?
I love how dry it is. It's like with how it's also kind of got that peppery note like at the end, and like with a really nice dry bitter finish. It is almost reminiscent of an Italian Pils in that way.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah,
the
we brewed
hop
this
again?
beer. It's a Callista. It's a
Callista.
German.
Thank you. Sorry. Yes.
But yeah, I brewed this beer a couple times now. This last time we actually dropped the ABV down a little bit, dropped from 5 down to 4.5. And we changed the dry hop, I think, each time as well. But just kind of playing around, all in the same kind of noble, family. We haven't done anything, we're not adding Citra or any kind of modern hops to it. But
That seems appropriate.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's certainly a thing too. Like if you wanted to do a more of a modern dry hopped, lager category beer, by all means. But not really our intentions for this beer. We wanted to go for more noble classic kind of vibe.
Completely. I just saw, funnily enough, I just saw my friend in Rochester who checked into this beer in like 2019. And so it's balanced. This place is so young and so promising and so impressive. Look at that. Shasta Will.
Cool.
Loving it. This is dope, man. This is it's really solid. I feel like I even in like a blind taste test, like I feel like Kölsch's you can really like not mistake it, but like it just, even though technically it's not a crispy, like saying like it might as well be. It has a lot of the characteristics, like it's big and bold, tons of flavor. This is great.
Yeah. For me, like I couldn't pick it out necessarily from our lagers, aside from like the flavor profiles are all different from lager to lager, but it's got all the same qualities from a malt perspective, from a drinkability, from a overall drinking experience. Yeah, it's right there with all of our other kind of crispy beers that we do.
That's great, man. You guys do a lot of... Oh, now you had, just before we even kind of move on there, you actually have a different crispy than we have. Do you want to tell us about the one that you've got to show off a little something different?
Yeah, no, I'm drinking... are you talking about like what I'm drinking versus what you guys are drinking?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so we had decided to add this one kind of last minute to the roster. I sent you guys this beer and didn't have one myself. So yeah, I'm drinking Brightside, which is... It's a Pilsner. this was like very much on the hoppy side, even for our lagers. Like drove a lot more IBUs into this beer. It's kind of loosely. We did a pilsner called Meander for our 3rd anniversary, which was a collaboration with Slake, and turned out really, really well. So it's loosely modeled after that. For that beer, we did all Barn Owl malt because that's what Slake does the vast majority of the time. But it's an Ontario maltster, kind of hard to source or get regularly. So this time we switched to a Czech malt and kept the recipe beyond that pretty similar. But yeah, just a really, really bitter hop forward lager.
That's awesome, man. You guys do a lot of Crispies?
We do, yeah. We've always done a good chunk of them. We're going a little bit heavier lately, just because we really enjoy them.
Love it.
I'm not sure if you guys have been to the brew before, but we do have like a full and pretty high end food program. So we sell a ton of lager. Like we've got 12 taps. If we've got one lager going on those 12 taps, it'll still be 25% of our sales, just because they're really food-friendly beers. And we also get a certain percentage of our customers that come in that are there for the food, and they want a beer while they're there, kind of thing, and they want something that resembles beer for them. Because we do a lot of out there stuff. So, right. Yeah, we do a lot of lagers, and we're doing definitely more of them these days.
Okay, that's wicked to hear. Nate, have you been?
I'd love to see that. I have not been out. No, it's been a number of years since I've been out to Niagara Falls. But I definitely love to come out that way, though.
You're like right out there, eh? In Niagara, right in the falls, kind of. Like I guess therefore, what you're probably telling me then is that people are coming in for the food, and because you're in that region, maybe not even realizing the quality of the beer that they're walking into.
Yeah, no, I would think. Our beer and our food are kind of like pretty equal in terms of our customer base. Like a lot of them are there for both, but a lot of them are there just for the food. A lot of them are just for the beer, and then you're there for the beer, but you're eating food, and vice versa.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we're definitely, like, even though we're in Niagara Falls, we're in the north end of Niagara Falls, like the non-touristy end. Okay. So we're definitely a local spot. So we see a ton of repeat customers, and they generally know what we're doing kind of all around. They've had our food, they've had our beers, and definitely not like we especially pre-COVID, we benefited from tourism for sure, but it's not not our bread and butter,
primary.
By any means.
Okay. And even just looking, I've pulled up Google Maps to see where you guys are in comparison to everything else. I think it's actually kind of probably works out better that you're just out of that tourist area, because the people who are coming to visit, they'll go and see the falls, and then they, I know personally, every time I go there, I'm just like, get me the fuck out of here, so I can move up, somewhere else, like away from the tourists. And this is perfect because you're probably in a place that's like very close by to where you just were, but just far enough out that you're kind of gonna be away from like the mobs of crowds, and you can just enjoy yourself, which is fantastic.
Yeah, we're probably 8 minutes from the falls, but we're like firmly off the beaten track. And if tourists do come to us, it's because they were at another local bar or restaurant, and then their server told them to check us out. Like that's kind of our back door to tourism. Like we don't do any marketing towards that.
Okay, any reason, or it's just sort of not really necessary?
I think like we just want to get the right customers in the door, like ones that are going to appreciate what we're doing. So rather than trying to get anyone who's in the area to come to us, if generally speaking, we get the tourists that are going to put in a little bit of effort, that want to try something interesting while they're in town. And if because we make it not right in their face, like they have to ask their server what's good in town, or we find that we just generally get people that are more aligned with what we're trying to do. And it's just more of an organic approach that has generally worked well for us.
I love that a lot. Do you get spillover from wine country from there? So because obviously like people having a day in the wineries, and then maybe you want a little switch up. Obviously everything closes at like 5-6 o'clock, so if you want to kick on and switch up the vibes, I guess I imagine it's not too far from Niagara on the Lake.
Yeah, we do. We're probably we're kind of equidistant between the falls and wine country. We're kind of right in the middle, north end Niagara Falls, right kind of on the edge of Niagara Lake, and yeah, like we get a fair amount of tour groups in, and bachelor party and bachelorette parties and such. But yeah, it's hard to put a number on these things, but yeah, we definitely get a fair amount of people that've been out doing the wine thing and stopping by after for sure.
Okay, interesting. I'm just checking. Like we always, my girlfriend's pretty big into wine, so we'd always go like Stratus in Niagara Lake was her fave. I just checked, it's like 17 minutes drive from there. That's wicked, man.
Yep.
I didn't realize.
Yeah,
Okay.
it seems to be like a growing thing and a nice thing to be able to have that spillover with between the two crowds. We were just talking with all my friends just last night, like who are of course in like in Bloomfield and like in Prince Edward County, and the same like the same kind of thing. Lots of wine tours that will that will sometimes end up there afterwards, and and it seems to be a pretty good crowd that they can get from that, and it seems like it's a bit of a similar thing with you guys.
Yeah, they're relatively like-minded demographic. I find the wine crowd, like the wine goers in general, if you're going to a winery, you're getting a little bit more of a pretentious, for lack of a better word, experience. It's a little bit more uppity.
It's true.
And the beer world's kind of the contrast to that. And it's nice to experience both. So you're out doing your your fancier kind of tastings all day, and then you kind of come on wine and have a beer. So I think it's a good relationship between the two, and in general a demographic that crosses over to both.
Definitely.
Do you think do you think that there's like something that might attract that crowd a little bit more with it, like with you guys being more culinarily focused, and like I'm sure we'll talk more about that like as we go along, but that's that's not always very common with breweries to have a really strong focus on on food. Do you think that you think that helps bring in that crowd a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we definitely have a menu that would kind of speak to that audience, but we also we always have at least a red and white wine, often a rosé as well, and we do like rotating with local wineries. So we
Oh,
generally
that's great.
yeah, like we'll feature a winery for 2 months or so, and then rotate it through, and so yeah, like we sell a fair amount of wine as well, and that's if people come in and want to, is when you're talking food pairings and such, if we have the opportunity to showcase the local winery, we're very happy to do that as well.
I love that.
Yeah, man, that's really cool. I'm like very happy to hear how close you are to that. I think that's great. Because I know when
I know for
go.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I know for me, like, just because I've always been the person that's, dragging my family around or my friends around to different breweries. And I remember, like, going to San Diego with my parents, my wife and my parents, and took my parents to probably 12 different breweries the first day we were there. And, like, not a single one had anything besides beer, which for me was great. But my mom's just sitting there patiently there, and, she's not a beer drinker.
Right.
So it's nice to be a little bit inclusive in that sense. If you've got a group of 8 coming out and 2 of them don't drink beer, it's nice that they can have a great experience too. So we just try to keep that in mind. Having dragged my fair share of people to breweries that aren't into beer, and just by getting them there, hopefully they can get their glass of wine, and hopefully they try a beer while they're there, and you can kind of bring them along. But we want people to enjoy their time when they're at the brewery. So yeah, wine's definitely big part of that too.
Nice.
Really cool, man. Yeah, it's just you don't realize. Like I remember when Bench opened in Beamsville, that was like a big deal because it was pretty close. It was the only thing that was open past 5 or 6 o'clock, and it was often it's sort of the flip of what you just described. Like maybe from a couple. I mean, the generic thing is that the wife would be out there drinking the wine, and the husband is like doing his thing and maybe a little bored and looking for something else. So it's kind of just good, but I feel like now that's obviously changed, like gender-wise, everyone's kind of into everything. So it's just cool because like even ourselves, I really love wine. Going to the wineries is a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, it is a little tiring on your palate. So you do kind of look for something that's cold and bubbly and then works well with the food and stuff. So it's I don't know, I think it's really valuable to have a high quality craft brewery, and on like, of course, added with the kitchen side, in close proximity to wine regions. I think that's super important. It's great, man. Good for you guys.
Yeah, for
Was
sure.
was that? Are you from Niagara, or was this like was the intention to build a place that was close to wine country, or did it just happen that way?
Yeah, no, I'm from Niagara Falls. I'm from the north end of Niagara Falls, so my parents live 5 minutes away. My in-laws are 2 minutes away. Uh, yeah, so
Convenient.
this is home. It's a part of town that I'm familiar with. So it's more, uh, the fact that Niagara Falls is a tourist town is great. The fact that it's a border town is nice. The fact that wineries are right there, like these are all just things that happen to be the case. For us, is more like we wanted to open a brewery in our hometown, and there was also a big need for it or at least a big hole for it. We weren't sure whether there was a
Mm.
demand for it because it didn't really exist, but there is an opportunity for it, and we'd kind of hoped that if we opened it here and did it the right way, that there would be an audience for it. And we've been pretty fortunate in that respect.
That's dope. Then, excuse me, a nice little segue from there. Let's sort of like scale it back a bit and go to the beginning of the story. I'd love to hear how you personally got into beer, and then how that led to the brewery opening up.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, from Niagara Falls, as I said, but I moved out west in 2009. Moved out to Vancouver area in British Columbia
Nice.
for work. I worked for BC Hydros out there, and yeah, at the time there's really no craft beer scene in Niagara or Ontario for that matter. And but in that, like 2009, in BC, like that's where the beer scene was really just starting, and it blew up like from 2009 to 2012. The amount of breweries that opened was phenomenal. So yeah, upon moving out there, like I just got into it pretty quickly, just trying different beers. We started doing bike tours all the time. We'd get our friends together, and we'd hop around, hit like 8 or 10 breweries a day in East Vancouver.
Oh, yeah.
Started shooting down to Seattle and doing the same thing, and down to Portland, and we'd do bus tours, going around to different breweries. So yeah, just got really really into it. Started home brewing around that time as well. Was doing that most weekends. So I started to learn a little bit more about it too. And beer trading for me was huge as well. Like in those earlier days, like in 2014, started doing beer trading, and getting my hands on Treehouse in the really early days, and
Oh, yeah.
Trillium back when their IPAs are in 750 ml bottles, and just trying really interesting things, and getting like progressively more obsessed with it, and wasn't really considering it as a vocation, but I would talk about that. Like when I'd come home, I'd say to my mom, they've got like a country property. I'd say to her, like, when we move home, like, what do you think about me opening a brewery, like in your shed, like just starting a little thing on the side. And it wasn't serious, but it was serious enough, and my parents knew that I was going, getting really obsessive over it, that they bought me like or paid for me to do like a 1 week course. It's like a how to start a craft brewery, basically. That's at Oregon State University in Bend, Oregon, and so went down there for the week, and it was full week of you're just meeting with industry professionals, and spending your day in class, spending your nights going around to different breweries. I don't know if you guys have been to Bend, but it's at the time it was the highest per capita, breweries city in the world. I think at the time it's probably the size of Niagara Falls, and there's like 30, 40 breweries there. It's phenomenal.
Damn.
But yeah, so that was the first time I started, kind of thinking about that kind of got the ball rolling, and I started slowly kind of business planning, or at least thinking about it. And yeah, my wife and I knew we always wanted to move home, wanted to move back to Niagara. So in beginning of 2017, we decided to do that. And when we were talking about what the plans are, I had to leave my job, obviously, to move back. And my wife was, super supportive and kind of pushing me to do it. We figured like I'd just come home without a job and moved into my parents' basement, and I'd just start business planning and kind of take a stab at it, because I had to switch jobs anyways. Worst case, if I couldn't take it anywhere, I wasted a few months and could always, get back into the workforce. But yeah, that was beginning of 2017. We opened beginning of 2019. There's a lot that happened in between there, which, have to talk about that too. But yeah, that's more or less kind of my journey to it. My business partner Joe, he's our chef, phenomenally talented guy. So he's got his own story, his own journey, obviously, and the story of how we met and decided to do it together. It's own, it's this whole separate story as well. But that was kind of my, my journey towards it, anyways.
That's very cool, man. So you are currently the brewer as well?
No, I'm the beer side of the ownership. I'm Beer Joe's Food. So I'm like heavily involved on that side, but we've got a 2-man brew team. John, who's our head brewer, has been our head brewer since we opened, and Eli's our assistant brewer as well. But the three of us work very closely together on our beer program.
Okay, dude, that's sick. So, when obviously you said from the beginning, I know you were joking to your mum that you'd be, hey, I should open a brewery in your shed. How did you? I guess you started just decided with Joe that you wanted to open in that area. I imagine he's from the area too, and it kind of made sense.
Yeah, he's from Niagara on the Lake. He was also living out west. He moved out there before I did. I don't know, maybe 2007 or so. So he was out there longer than I was. It's actually my wife's uncle Steve, and his dad Bucky. They were partners on the police force in Niagara Falls. And it was the two of them, actually. They were golfing the one day and started chatting about it. Like Bucky was talking about his son, moving home to open a restaurant. My Uncle Steve was like, yeah, my nephew's actually moving home to open a brewery, or that's the plan. And they kind of had this idea like, oh, these guys should meet. Like, that sounds like, at the very least, they have a lot in common. And so my Uncle Steve calls, the one day all half shittered from golfing all day. And he's just super stoked about this revelation that he's had. And yeah, so he kind of set it all up, and he's telling us a little bit about Joe. And like I'm a big, culinary cooking fan. Like I used to watch, all the shows, and Joe was actually on like the first Canadian episode of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. I don't know if you guys have seen that Guy Fieri show, but the first episode that was in Canada, the restaurant Joe was at the time, called Meat and Bread, was like the first restaurant featured on that show. So my wife and I go, onto YouTube, and we start pulling up videos of it, and we're super stoked to meet him. And met Joe and his partner Jared at a brewery called Brass Neck in East Vancouver. Hit it off, and and didn't really necessarily know we were going to do something together, but stayed in touch, and we just happened to move home at roughly the same time. Like I moved home in February. Joe came a couple months after that. So when he got home, I was already started into business planning. He had planned to work for a couple years and kind of make connections in the area, but pretty quickly decided like he wanted to do this. So we kind of decided to join together at that time, and we looked at Niagara on the Lake. We looked at Niagara Falls. I really wanted to be in Niagara Falls. We ended up finding a great location, and Joe was all in for that as well. So kind of a long answer to that, but that's how it kind of came to be in the area and came to be doing this thing together.
Dude, that's awesome. I'm here for the long answers. Love it. So we do 2 hours plus.
There you go.
So then, okay, sick. So as far as, and Nate, jump in anytime if I'm hogging it too much. As far as the vision for both the beer and the food side, I'd love to hear what you sort of had in mind. Obviously, it sounds like the inspirations from Trillium and Treehouse and the things that you were getting when you were training. Obviously, the Vancouver scene is killer, particularly in East Van we were talking about there. Your inspirations sound like the beers that I've had so far, and what I imagine we're having tonight. What was the sort of vision of the type of beers you want to create? And then if you, I mean, I imagine you could probably speak on behalf of Joe to sort of maybe what was the food vision? What were you trying to create with them, and how did they sort of work in tandem together?
Yeah, so on the beer side, we just wanted to be, progressive, uh, and evolve kind of with the scene as it goes. So yeah, I've got a pretty good beat on what's going on, both locally and outside that. I'm very, very influenced by brewers in the U.S. for sure. Like all the trips we've done over the last 10 years have been beer focused. Like when we were out west, we'd spent time in Washington and Oregon and California and Colorado and did kind of all that side. And then as soon as I moved home, my brother-in-law and I hopped in the car and drove out to Boston area and did Treehouse and Trillium, and went down to Maine and did Bissell Brothers and Allagash and on to Vermont for Hill Farmstead and Foam and all. So like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I feel like I've got a good beat on where the industry's at, and I'm just genuinely a huge fan of all these beers. So we wanted to be progressive, and certainly a focus on hazy hoppy beers, adjunct stouts, fruited sours, lagers. Those are kind of like our four pillars, with hazy hoppy beers definitely being our primary focus. And on the food side, we wanted to kind of match that from being a progressive, creative aspect. And for Joe, like he's just a super high end talent, so wanted to utilize that to the best of our abilities as well. So we do like whole animal butchery, which is for the area, being able to get whole hogs from Niagara on the Lake, and be able to butcher that in house and use it from feet to nose and not waste anything.
Cool.
And be able to feature like local produce. The produce in Niagara is unparalleled. So just wanted to be equally kind of creative and engaging on both sides, and with a heavy focus on rotating and doing new stuff on both sides too. Like with our beer, we have some beers that are available or have brewed more than once. Our Pilsner is really the only beer that's pretty much always available. We focus on rotating beers, and same thing on the food side. Like we've got a feature board that has 7 or 8 features, and we rotate those out daily as well. So just try to keep things moving, keep things interesting, keep our audience engaged, and do things in the area that previously people weren't doing. And there wasn't much by way of comparables for that, so we had to kind of take a leap of faith and hope that there's an audience for it. And as I said, we've been pretty fortunate that way, and people have been into it since we started.
That's dope.
That's awesome. Yeah. So the different strategies in terms of how different breweries decide to either rotate their offerings, or or continuously roll out new ones is always an interesting conversation for us. So you say Pure is one of is maybe the only one that's that's on offer all the time. So were you saying the other ones basically don't really get repeated at all, or or do they or do some still come around every now and then, or is it basically like a one and done kind of thing?
Yeah, we have a bit of a different strategy for each category. Like with our lagers in general, there's some repeatability. Like we probably have 8 or 10 in our arsenal that we kind of rotate through. With pale ales, same idea. We probably have 4 or 5 that we and we do different variants of them. Like Flow is kind of our flagship pale ale, which is Citra, Equinox, Centennial. And we've done a million different versions of that where we'll rotate out Citra, which is the primary hop, for Vic Secret or for Galaxy or for Nelson or whatever. So our more like everyday kind of crushable beers, we keep those a little bit tighter, just because I think there's some value in having, brands you can kind of rely on and know, because those are the beers that you're drinking. You just get a 6-pack and keep them in the fridge kind of thing. Versus like our IPAs, double IPAs, we pretty much don't repeat those at all. Like there's just there's too many hop combinations to do, and things we want to try. So, and I think for that category of drinker too, like it's just a very promiscuous sector of drinker. Like they just want whatever's new, myself included.
Yeah, no, it's
So
100%.
we try to take advantage of that, and it's for us too, like just be able to explore and do interesting things.
Yeah, man.
On the sour side, we do a lot more like rotating series. So we'll have like blender, which is our lactose, vanilla, lemon zest, and a rotating fruit. So there's passion fruit blender, guava blender, and so on. So same thing on we've got a roller. It's an oatmeal stout series, and we do coffee maple roller or coconut lactose roller or whatever. Like we've got kind of rotating series. So it depends on the category, but in general, we're changing things up a ton. Even if it's a familiar brand, we're still changing up the hop combinations and changing up the adjunct combinations, things like that.
Sick.
Right on.
I love that.
Sorry there, see, before we go on, as much as like I even already finished this Kölsch because it was too damn good. I could have drank that all night, but we've got a lot of beers to get through tonight, so we should probably move on to the pale ale.
That's what I was literally about to say.
Yep.
Glorious. Speaking of pale ales, so I was just checking this one. This one seems to have obviously Untappd isn't the be all and end all, of course, but this has like a pretty decent amount of check-ins. This the one we're about to have right now. This one have you done a few times?
Yeah, I don't know how many times you've done it. It'd probably be 4 or 5 times we've done it now.
Okay, that would make sense.
Yeah, I'd say Flow being kind of our primary pale, Spill would be second to that. It was kind of built off of that too, like Spill, like the name Spill was supposed to play off the word flow, just being a smaller kind of version of it instead of 5.2% alcohol, it's 4.5.
I like that. So keeping it nice and light. Yeah, that body looks great there. Yeah, it's got like 1,000 check-ins, so I mean that's pretty significant for. Oh my god, that's great. For like a beer, that maybe you haven't done a ton. It's awesome. Maybe you guys are getting more check-ins because of the styles as well. I imagine you're playing pretty much into that sort of typical Untappd crowd, which it sounds like that's the three of us. Oh, fuck, my Counterpart glass. I'm going to text my girlfriend to bring it down. What am I supposed to do? I need to rap. I got the hat, but I need to wear the glass. So we can take a sip, because we realize we keep doing all this stuff and talking about it and taking photos, and then we just sitting here never sipping. First of all, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Get that in you. Delicious. So 4.5. I just saw this has Citra, Amarillo, and El Dorado. Which is
that's awesome. That's a nice tight ABV on that one. I mean, like most pale ales, I'm I was thinking probably somewhere in the 5.5 range, but to have this sub 5 is is pretty cool to be able to have it down that low. And despite the lower ABV, the body is still really, really nice and fluffy and smooth.
Yeah, certainly the goal, like to have, we called this a session IPA initially. That name has just become kind of irrelevant, and so you kind of phase it out, move it back to a pale ale.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Yeah, the goal was to have an alcohol level that you could drink a whole pile of, and then have it be really drinkable. But yeah, try to build up that mouthfeel a little bit. Have the hops still driving the bus, and keep it within balance as well. So this is one that I drink a lot of. It's one of our favorites at the brewery for sure.
Yeah, I think the pale ale style, at least from a style name, suits this better than session IPA would have. I often associate session IPAs with something that is much thinner in body, with usually a bit harsher citric acidity and bitterness, and that's not this at all. I would much more associate this with with a pale ale. And had I not seen what's on the can, I would have guessed this is more in the 5.5% range, just based on the body, like we've been saying. This is really nice.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, I agree. I found that with session IPAs as well. Like, I don't know if that's by design or just the way that most session IPAs come out, but to me, yeah, pale ale just seems more like a more appealing category at this point. So
Could not agree more.
yeah, didn't really change the recipe much, but pale ale just seemed like a better. And these things are, in the beer world, they're pretty subjective. You can kind of call things what you want to call them, but
Yeah.
from marketing perspective, I just like the way this beer felt like a pale ale to me as well.
Mm. I feel like I know Nate has always never liked session IPAs. Always found it like hilarious, but like I don't know. It's just like a turn off. Like I'd proactively reach for and purchase pale ales, but I'm never going to go and buy a beer that's a session IPA on it. I just won't. I don't know why. It's so dumb because it's like you said, it's the same thing. But there's something when it says pale ale, I'm like, oh, you intended this to be 4.5, and that is a full strength style. Whereas session IPA sounds like a weak version of what it's supposed to be. I think it's psychology. It's weird. It's such a weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100% is.
Yeah, there's an association to it that just doesn't that's just not positive.
Hmm. Yeah, not at all. And this is great. Wicked, like Nate said, I would not have guessed, like absolutely would not have guessed 4.5. I'd probably say about 5.5. Really nice and creamy, super citrusy. And I was wondering, speaking of psychology, as I was sort of smelling it and sipping it and we were talking, I was like, I wonder if I'm getting citrus because the can's orange. I'm like, am I just like thinking citrus? But I'm seeing the tasting notes here, and it's all citrus.
Yeah, no, that's 100% the goal with this beer. Like, it's intended almost to be like a breakfast beer, so I'd almost get
mm,
that mimosa, like very,
mm,
very orange, tangerine, clementine, like that. The hop profile was kind of built out for that purpose, and
yeah,
yeah, the in terms of the branding, color, the label, yeah, just felt kind of suiting,
100%.
fitting.
Yeah, very much so. No, this is fantastic, man. I can see this being like I can see why you've done it a bunch of times. Like I can see this sort of really like speaking to a lot of palates, and from what, and this is kind of I guess a statement slash question. I've like it typically seems to come up when I was curious if you've noticed if there's any maybe drinking trends from your audience. Like, are people more leaning towards these lighter, lower ABV beers recently? Not just like 4.5, but like 6.5% IPAs as opposed to the doubles. Like, have you noticed a kind of like a switch in the trends? Because we've heard a bit of a mix, and I imagine it's probably case by case. But I was wondering if maybe like post-pandemic people were not willing to spend as much on the bigger beers sometimes, and maybe it's been hitting everyone's waistlines, particularly in the early days. I don't know if everyone's been able to fix that type of thing.
Yeah, I think the trend's been kind of long time coming in terms of like lower alcohol, like lagers in particular, but lower alcohol stuff in general. Uh, yeah, like I don't think that that's necessarily taking away from the big alcohol stuff. I think the audience is still there for that too.
Okay.
But uh, yeah, like for me, I think that part of it is just the craft beer drinker in Ontario, because we're pretty late to the game. Like, it took Ontario, it's pretty the last 5 years really is where so much of the evolution take place, and the breweries have gotten to a really, really high level really quickly.
Yes.
And the consumers kind of come along with that. And as you progress kind of on that journey as a craft beer drinker, you spend years like just trying the biggest alcohol, the most adventurous, the most whatever, and you kind of find yourself at a point eventually where you want things that are a little bit easier, a little bit less complicated, things that you can drink a lot of and not think too much about. And as your consumer gets older too, I know for me, like I've got, 2 little kids now, and there's a lot of time where I want a few beers or a couple beers, and you got to keep your wherewithal, whether it be kids are napping and you want to crush a couple beers while they're napping, and then you still got a parent after, or you want to, or like tonight, having a bunch of beers, and I know I'm getting up at 5:30 in the morning regardless. So yeah, for like it's more just kind of it is a trend certainly in terms of lower alcohol stuff, but it's also just where I'm at personally, and us as a brewing team as a at Counterpart. So part of it's always just kind of brewing what we want to brew and what we want to drink, but it also aligns with the trends as well. Like you'd have to be pretty oblivious not to see the surge of non-alcoholic beers and low alcohol beers and that are coming out now. So no, it's great. It's just more things you can focus on, you can do, and when you get into these really low alcohol beers, like 4.5 isn't even super low by today's standards. Yeah, you get into the 3s and the 2s, and it's just more times, opportunities to be able to drink and insert beer kind of into your day. So, that's I guess what drives us on it.
That's an interesting way to look at it, like ways to insert beer into your day. I like that. Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of trends with the lower ABV. I found that because I just moved here from Montreal maybe 6 months ago, that Quebec was ahead of the game on the lower ABV thing, and then like maybe 4 or 5 years ago they were heavy with like the 2% beers and stuff that I thought was ridiculous. I thought it was the dumbest shit of all time. Was not my bag at all. And then I found that they didn't jump on board maybe as quickly as I think Ontario did with the non-alcoholic stuff, which I'm actually a big proponent of. Like, I genuinely love that stuff. I just would rather drink none than like 2. Because if I'm going to drink alcohol, I want alcohol. But if I want to pretend to drink alcohol, then give me non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah.
It's
I'm kind of the opposite in that sense. Like
yeah.
I really like that 3% where I can have a couple, and you're it's the middle of the day, you're still gonna have it, you're still gonna feel it a little bit, but yeah, then you can kind of carry on, but that's the goal, right? Like everyone's got their own preferences, and ideally, collectively as breweries, we're kind of filling all those needs.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I mean, look, everyone has their different... I don't like day drinking, so it's... but I can understand if you were to day drink and you want to kind of keep it pretty chill, then maybe a 2-3% would be the perfect thing. But yeah, it is pretty cool that it is... that all these options are available. Have you guys looked at or considered doing... whether it's complete NA or like extremely low ABV stuff at all, or is that not really in the vision as yet?
We haven't really talked about. I wouldn't say never, but we don't have it in our plans to do non-alcohol.
Okay.
Definitely low alcohol though. Like we've gone as low as we've done a bunch of 4% stuff. I would like to do like a 2.5, probably 3%. Would be a nice sweet spot to be for some light lagers and things of that nature. So I'd say certainly this summer we'll toy around with that, and hopefully get something that is still still well-rounded and balanced and flavorful at that lower ABV, whether it be a table beer like a light Pils or something of that nature.
Have you had a lot of like requests? Like are people asking for this stuff, or this is more just trying to serve a market or serve a niche that exists that maybe hasn't like knocked on the door asking for a type of thing?
We definitely get requests. It's not overwhelming. Like I think like the way the the industry is going with the amount of it that's coming out now, it does, like, we haven't had, in my mind, that level of demand for it. Okay. But there obviously is a really big demand for it because you have all these breweries that are doing really well with it. That hasn't, in my mind, been from our audience, but there definitely is a demand for it. And again, like with being having the kitchen program that we do, it makes more sense for us than it does for probably a lot of breweries, because we're open 7 days a week. We're opening at noon. We have people there all day. So if you're coming over on a lunch, midway through a work day or whatever, we get a lot of young families in. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense for us. And again, it's just one of those things that I really like right now, or we really like right now. So we've got an interest in kind of diving into that a little bit. But definitely the low alcohol game, not the no alcohol game for the time being.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Particularly the lunch thing. That's a good point. I was even thinking when I worked a full-time job, like, if you snuck out for lunch somewhere and went to grab a beer, it would have been pretty optimal to have a 3% as opposed to even just like the standard 5%, just because you got to come back to the office and not look lit. Yeah, I like that. Okay, dope. That's great, man. That's pretty cool. Like, I always forget that like breweries would get that lunch crowd. I guess once again, like, do you think people see you guys mostly as? I mean, I guess it depends who you ask, but like as a or maybe a better question is, what sort of percentage of people see you as a brewery versus see you as a restaurant primarily? Like you said, some people just come through like, oh, you make beer, sweet, I'm gonna get that with my food, type of thing.
Yeah, I'd say we're seen as a brewery, and that was pretty specific from when you come in, we've got the production space like feet away from the bar. It's pretty hard to come in and not feel like a brewery, and we really wanted that to be the case.
Okay.
It's a hard balance, like when you have more of an elevated food program. So I'd say people definitely know us as a brewery, but they also know where our food program's at too. When we first opened, we did counter service, in that like everything had to be ordered at the counter. So if you're coming in, you're getting food, you had to order that at the bar. You had to order your drink at the bar. You'd take your beer back to your table, and we'd run your food out to your table when it was ready, kind of thing. And that was very strategic too. Like, we really wanted to have that brewery experience, which for me is ordering at the bar. You know, you're getting up, you're moving around, you're being social. Like, you're not just being sat at your table, sitting down for an hour, talking only to the person across from you, getting up and leaving. We wanted to have a brewery experience with the food. And that worked really well for that first year. And we had a little bit of pushback, just people that didn't understand it, didn't want it, like they wanted to be served. And we're like, no, you got to come to the bar, and that's the way it is here. But then when COVID set in, there was no work. Like we tried to kind of keep that concept, and it just didn't work with people, keeping people separated and such. So right. We've gone to a table service style, just because we had about a year before COVID, almost exactly a year. But we got our 4th anniversary approaching, so we've now had 3 years of post-pandemic of different style of service. So most of our customers kind of know us, not as we're intended to be necessarily.
Right.
But yeah, no. In terms of to get back to the question, I'd say definitely known as a brewery, but a lot of people do come for the food, or at least very aware of where the food program's at. Like, that's, I think, especially being in the area, that it's what sets us apart, at least as much as our beer, if not more.
Okay. Would you ever go back to that original pre-pandemic style of service, or is it kind of too late now?
Yeah, no, I would absolutely love to. We talk about it all the time. I think that I don't think we will. When we looked into this, or when we were first planning the brewery, we talked to a lot of other breweries that are doing similar styles, like someone like Merit in Hamilton, or Resurgence just over the border, and breweries out west that we used to chat. Like out west, they largely have food trucks. They don't actually have a kitchen there, but gotcha. Generally speaking, the breweries that we were kind of modeling ourselves after had like a 25 to 75% food to beer ratio, in that most people are there to drink beer and they might eat, kind of thing. Whereas we've always been like much more of like a 50-50, if anything, like 55-45 of people eating to drinking, like from a dollars perspective. Wow. So it was kind of a flawed concept to begin with, just in that so many people were there. So we'd get 12 people come in and they're all eating. So they all have to line up at the bar, order one by one. And people, like, I think people really enjoyed it, but it was onerous on the bar to be able to do it that way. And we'd get stacked up lines at the bar, and but it worked, and we definitely would have stuck with it. But it was a little, just because we do so much food, it was a little bit of a flawed concept. So I don't think we will go back to it, even though it'd be really nice to. but we found a nice balance now. Like we still keep our service really casual. Like we've got, our kind of workaround for, we didn't want to have a traditional food service where your server's coming in and, introduce themselves at whatever, and I'm going to be your server today and coming and bugging you every 10 minutes, whether you want to top up or can I help you with anything. So we have like a flag system at the brewery. So basically, like, we completely leave you alone. If you turn your flag up, that means you want something and we'll come over. So we've tried to like go to table service, but keep it a little bit more casual. Certainly took a bit to work out the kinks in that. Like when we did our hiring, we had no intentions of ever doing table service. So we didn't hire servers that had a bunch of table, that style of, experience. So it didn't matter. But so it took us a little bit to figure out, but our team is awesome, in that transition. And, we got there and we've got that nailed down now. And people now know what to expect when they come. And it's working well. I still miss counter service, but it works.
Interesting. The flag thing sounds cool. But I feel you, though. I can imagine, like, if... I guess it's probably a little tough to have a blend service or some sort of like hybrid service where, like, hey, if you're a party of 12, then we'll get table, and if you've got anything less, then you go up to the bar type of thing. It's probably just easy. I like that though, man, because it is kind of annoying in a place where you're going that is expected to be a little more chill. Not that it's like a problem to get like bothered by a server who wants to see if you're good, but you're at a brewery, you're used to being left alone, and you have to get up to go and get what you need. So I see what you mean. That sounds like a pretty good solution for the situation. I like that.
Yeah,
it's really smart. This is making me hungry for real.
Yeah, really.
What sort of to make it worse? What sort of could you describe the type of food? Like I was just checking the even just when I was looking at on the Google Maps, like the what am I calling the photos that are attached to the Google thing. I'm seeing a lot of like, there was like, it looked like chicken, like fried chicken and stuff like that. Like it sounds like it'll be pretty high quality though. Like it looked like elevated beer fare is what I was getting from the images here. I mean, if you want to expand on that a little.
Yeah, I'd say it ranges from elevated beer food to, just really high end dishes, like somewhere in, because we do things that are just, completely outside of what you'd expect to have a brewery, but then we do have those classics as well.
Okay.
But it cut, like everything has a certain, or a really high degree of quality. Everything's completely scratch made, very, very labor intensive. Using a lot of local ingredients, working with local farmers for, protein and produce. And, our core menu has the chicken sandwiches and the burgers and, things of that nature. But when we get to our feature board, that's where we get to kind of play around and do kind of whatever seasonal, whatever we can get our hands on. A lot of times we're doing like a handmade pasta or something that's like tremendously labor intensive. Like often we're only doing 20 plates of it or whatever, and it sells out when it sells out. And sometimes things are around for the evening.
I'm looking on Instagram here, and I'm seeing a panko crusted chicken katsu, and that looks dope.
Yeah,
look at that.
I did that today.
Damn.
So it's. Yeah, and still, like it's approachable. It's still, kind of comfort food, like, but it's elevated. It's a little more, we're pretty eclectic too, like dancing around between all sorts of different ethnicities from a food standpoint. So, there's like in general, like there's a theme of trying to have food that pairs well with beer. Like that's an underlying constant theme, but you can take that in a million different directions, which our kitchen definitely does.
Hell yeah.
Do you get a lot of do you find that people are typically going for like the core menu stuff, like the chicken sandwiches and the burgers, or do you get more people going for the kind of the less expected fare for a brewery?
Well, a chicken sandwich is far and away number one. Burgers number two for sure. But there's a huge percentage that's feature driven too of kind of whatever new thing we're doing. So, yeah, I'd say we have a nice balance. Like you want to have your core items, you want those to sell well, and again, when you're getting everything, like for example, for chickens, like we're getting in whole chickens, we're breaking them down, and you need to know, how many breasts you have, how much white meat, how much dark meat, how much so you need to move things in different ways. So it's nice to have certain items that sell with a certain level of predictability, and then the other parts of the bird you're using in various feature items. So yeah, the core items are core items for a reason, and we sell a bunch of those, but we've always been impressed with the trust that customers have put into us to kind of just try whatever we're putting out, which is cool.
That is really cool.
Sick, man. Yeah, just like I see what you mean though. I was just cruising through the Instagram while we were talking there as well, and it's like it does seem like a real nice mix. There's some stuff that kind of looks like, oh shit, that's fancy, and then some stuff like what you would expect. So it just seems like just like kind of with the beer menu, it's like the food kind of has something for every palate, and it actually kind of seems more surprising that you've got such elevated food at a brewery. I don't recall ever seeing that, which I think is just cool. I guess that really makes you guys stand out, whether it's in the region and beyond.
Yeah, it'd be really hard to do without, for us without having Joe. Like when I initially thought about doing, or when I was planning to do a brewery, I thought a food component would be important. But if it was me, like I would have done, a flat top and some tacos, and that would have been it, because it's a whole other world, and especially these days, but even back then, like if you want to do a really elevated food program, like being able to staff that and run that, it's a whole other animal. And if you don't have the talent to be able to do it, you just can't do it. So like we've had Joe at kind of he's the constant. He's always there, and he builds his team out. Yeah, for breweries that try to do it, if you don't have that within your ownership group, it strikes me as a very hard thing to do. And more often than not, especially here, you see a lot of breweries that'll kind of outsource that. So it'll be whatever brewery with whatever kitchen kind of operating within that brewery.
Yes. And
having worked at breweries like that in the past, like when I was in my early stages of business planning, I worked at local breweries. It's a tricky paradigm to kind of pull that off and have your teams kind of, when it's two different entities working together like that, it's a tricky thing to pull off. And from my experience, the kitchen and the brewery ownership often doesn't work out, and it rotates what kitchen is there. So for us, it's kind of built into our core, and it's something I'm very grateful to have Joe, and he does all that side, and I concentrate on my side, and then we just focus on making it cohesive.
That's a really good point. I was just sort of thinking of a few examples of breweries I know had sort of switched out kitchens over time. And I was just picturing, like, even imagine the brewery staff who work for the brewery, if the kitchen messes up or if something's late or if they have to kind of do it, it's like you kind of can't, like, treat, because it's sort of like an external, like they're your colleagues, but they're also separate. So you can't maybe, like, not that you're going to yell at anybody, but, like, maybe you couldn't talk to people. I've worked in restaurants and bars and stuff, and I've walked out in the middle of shifts because it's not my fucking thing at all. It's horrible. I don't like it. I'm not built for it, but I can absolutely understand the way that people, it's like you don't have time to sort of be nice. Like you just like, get me this now type of thing. And I imagine that, like, maybe that's not, well, the places I worked at, it was mostly like that. And I never took it, well, I did take it disrespectfully, but I know it's not intended that way. It's just the nature of the business when it's very fast paced. You've got people waiting and every kind of minute counts. When you're trying to encourage something to be done faster and they're not your direct, like, the people who are getting paid, they don't work for the same people you work for and stuff, it might make that weird or awkward or something, or you know what I mean? Was that type of
sure.
Am I reading that situation right? That's how it sometimes probably could be.
Yeah, for sure. No, if you've been in a service before and at a busy place, yeah, like when you get humming, like it's tense. Like everyone needs to be kind of on their game, and if there's any kind of disconnect or you're not truly on the same team, which is hard to feel that way when you literally have two different teams working under the same roof. And not to say like some people probably do that magnificently. Like so, I don't want to
Exactly.
But for us anyways, like the fact that we're all on the same team, we're all the same, we're all kind of counterpart. The ability to work together in those moments to me seems easier versus the experience that I've had where that's not necessarily the case. And there's to your point, like if the kitchen executes perfectly and then the service team screws that up when it's two different teams, then it even got like confusing in terms of like how do we then compensate that customer? Do we give them a free beer or do we discount the food, or like it just gets dicey and confusing. So yeah, for us it's just it's allowed us to to just have a common goal of serving that customer to the very best of our abilities. If there's a mistake made, it doesn't really matter who made it. We're going to make up for it. And it's worked really well for us. I couldn't imagine doing it any other way, but other breweries, restaurants, they I'm sure they pull it off in their own way. But for us, it's definitely we're happy with what we've kind of come up with here.
I love that. I know I can't stop thinking about that. That's fascinating. And even just I love business. I own a business, so it's like to me that's crazy. And even just like if the server messes up with the food, but the food was done right, who compensates? I like that is such a fantastic question, and maybe that could be why they just rock with food trucks, because they're like the food truck, they order it, they stand there, they wait, the food truck serves them, the brewery has nothing to do with it. So maybe it's sort of like when you bring the kitchen in and there's different businesses sort of separate running, and that's when it gets maybe more convoluted on the inside like that. So interesting.
Yeah, and there's that point like on where the clarity is for the customer too, because in those places where like the kitchen is a separate restaurant that's been integrated like into the brewery, at the end of the day, when the customer is being served, usually by brewery staff, they don't know that they don't necessarily have like the same kind of clarity on the fact that like the food and the beer are two separate entities. If if something comes out wrong, all they know is that the person who brought it out brought them the wrong food, and if they're if they end up getting pissed at someone, they like the server might end up taking the brunt of that. It's certainly like for those cases where it's not one of those clean cut things where it's one business working as part of the same team. It would certainly be easier if you had a food truck where there's a little bit more clarity to the customer of if I'm getting my beer here and I'm getting my food here, right?
Yeah,
and that's the case like in Vancouver. In that area, like it's a food truck driven thing out there. Like no breweries, or very, very few, had kind of their own food program. So that's what I was used to. And yeah, that works really, really well. And it's neat that, as a brewery, you can rotate out your kitchen every night and people are going to go there because that food truck is there. And that was really cool. But the food truck scene doesn't really exist to the same degree here. Certainly not in the Niagara region, to that degree. And most breweries do have a kitchen in the Niagara area, some sort of kitchen element. Like there's an expectation for that, which is not true out west in a lot of places in the U.S. and places I've traveled as well. Yeah. So yeah, when I moved home and started business planning, I hadn't worked in hospitality industries since my university days in the early 20s. So I made a point of kind of getting out there and working a little bit at local breweries just so I could get a feel for the hospitality side and what we'd be trying to do when we got there. And yeah, that was, we already knew what we were doing from a kitchen perspective, so I knew that wouldn't really necessarily be an issue for us, but it was really reinforcing to see some of the issues that can exist in that dynamic. So it made us feel a little it felt good and about what we were doing. Because it can be problematic. It doesn't have to be, but it can be.
Yeah, for sure.
I love it. This is a fascinating convo. It's beer time, isn't it, Nate?
It is beer time. You're reading my mind.
I could tell. Sold?
That's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. So, I already spoiled it. I was gonna wait for Nate. Next one up is Soul to Squeeze, 6.5% IPA. We're in the single IPA region right now. This is my little favorite zone. Which glass are we gonna go here? Right. Which is Greg? Which is the best beer for the glass? Would you say? Which I love this type of glass, by the way.
I would say hoppy beers.
Hoppy beers. Okay.
Yeah, I'd say like more. I'd say more when you get into like that's a double. It's for our double IPA rhythm. That particular glass.
Oh, it is too. Perfect. I'll wait for that.
Yeah, so it's all up to you. But for me, like that's a metric double IPA.
Okay, it's up to you, Greg. God damn it. So, actually, no. You know what we'll do? We're gonna take a sip first, and then we can take our damn photos and not be so distracted. Oof, mate, this looks glorious. I was just checking out. I was getting super excited about all the beers just while I was looking at the food on the Instagram. I was looking at the beers. And I was like, oh, shit. I'm loving the, sort of like the, for lack of a better word, like milkiness of everything. Like everything just has like really great, what's the word? Turbidity? Is that the word?
I think so.
You want that dense haze for sure.
Which is glorious. First of all, just before we get into it,
the nose on this one is driving me crazy. Yeah, let's get into it.
This is right.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Oh yes, my goodness. Whoa, wow, Jesus.
Yeah, that is lovely.
That is glorious. I knew shit was going to be good, but fuck no. This has that's Nelson Idaho 7, which is funnily enough mine and Nate's favorite hop, and Enigma. What a great combo! Tell us about this one, Greg.
Yeah, for hop combos, in my opinion, it seems like kind of an unorthodox pairing.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like Nelson and Idaho. I don't know if I've ever seen that before.
I don't think I have either. From a flavor perspective, like felt comfortable that it was going to work, but I'm just not sure I've seen that hop combination before.
Almost guaranteed, no.
But yeah, very very tropical, like with tropical driven kind of flavor profile.
Yes.
But that Enigma provides like a nice kind of dank, foundation for it, and yeah, like with all of our hoppy beers, we go very very aggressive on the dry hop, so. Big aromatics, big, always going for fruit forward flavor profiles. Mm-hmm. But if you can get in, some other qualities like whether it be dankness or, and kind of round it out and add a little bit complexity, it's kind of what we're going for. So, yeah, I was pretty pumped with how this one came out.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of dank, and I was really, really getting that on the nose, and it came through quite a bit on the palate as well. And the texture on this is just lovely. It's so smooth.
I'm starting to worry about these podcasts now because I have a problem controlling myself sometimes with the beers, and I felt like I was doing okay so far. Now I'm like, oh, fuck. Well, I guess I can always drink it afterwards, but still, I'm going to be chugging this. This is fantastic. Yeah, man. Is this the first time you've done this one?
Yeah, first time.
Okay. I really like the name too, by the way. Where'd that come from?
We do a lot of song-inspired names. So this is Red Hot Chili Peppers. But not all of them, but we did a lot of them are song-inspired. We bounce around from different genres. But that's what drives a certain portion of our names for sure. Okay.
Any faves that you've had that you really like?
From a name perspective, or from a
name?
No, like I've got. Yeah, I don't know.
You don't have to answer it. It was just like I just like this one a lot.
Yeah, like we did double IPA called Kings Never Die.
Sick,
not too long ago. I thought it was just a cool name. We did like a lion on it for the label, and Yeah, so like I think there's a lot of cool names to be pulled from music. The harder part often is coming up with the imagery to pair with it. Some of them are, pretty obvious, and you have something cool to attach to it. In this case, like this is one where, like I do the branding side, and my tattoo artist Shane, he does our artwork. He's the best, and my buddy
Amazing.
Matt does our graphic design. So the dynamic between us is like I kind of come up with the names, and then the ideas. I send my ideas to, like, whether it be a sketch of mine or something I found online to Shane. He makes it look a lot better, and then we take that to Matt, who's our graphic designer, and then we start adding color and text, and that's kind of the way it goes. But yeah, with this particular one, I had the name for a long time. I just didn't have a particularly good idea for the imagery to go along with it. So yeah, some of them come really easily. Others are a little more of a struggle, but yeah, we pull a lot of our names from music for sure.
I like that. That's really cool, man. This beer is fantastic. I mean, obviously you're getting the like now we've got the branding side, the tasting and stuff. I'm getting a lot of obviously from Nelson, like this sort of white grape wine type of notes, some like melon, definitely a lot of citrus. I feel like there's a little bit of like pithy. It's not quite bitter. It's like just pithiness, I guess. Excuse me. Obviously dank, which is fantastic. A touch earthy and maybe not. I wrote herbal, but I'm actually thinking probably more grassy on this one. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts.
Like what I'm the thing that I'm finding like noteworthy, like it's quite full flavored up front, but but it really finishes quite clean and dry. I don't know if that's just me, but I like, and that's also just something I find pretty common with Nelson is a dry finish. Do you think am I reading that right? Is that kind of how you would like how you would describe this one, Greg?
Yeah, no, I don't think that's off base at all. Especially in our 6.5%. That's where IPAs, we tend to kind of stick there these days. Yeah, we want a certain drinkability, so we're not going for something super sweet. So there's if you can have it with a dryness to it where you want another sip, that's a good thing.
Yep.
Yeah, like I do find Idaho 7 gives like some of those citrus kind of pithy qualities as well. Enigma, like in this case, it's I think a fifth of our dry hop charge, which is all that dankness really. If you use it too heavily, Enigma, like you can get more into the green onion, garlicky kind of category. But if you keep it kind of as a lower percentage, I think it just gives a nice layer of dankness, and it's pretty fruity too. But yeah, I think the balance worked out pretty well here.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Particularly being like a first time. How was the response to this one? I guess this only must have come out I think it was canned like a week ago. Super. Fresh.
Yeah, it was last week. Yeah, it was a week ago. Dropped it last Friday.
How'd it go? People were pretty stoked.
Dang, that's fresh.
Yeah, like so far the response has been good. Like from our locals, the people we chat with all the time, they all have their own favorites. Some of them align with my favorites, some of them don't. But it takes a little bit, like, because a lot of them are kind of going out into the world where they're going to online orders or licensees and such. So it always takes a little bit to kind of really see where people are at.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I really like it. Generally speaking, the people that I've spoken to so far, they like it is one of the more I'd say unique IPAs we've done from a flavor profile perspective. But it works too. But I can see it being a little more polarizing in terms of some people liking it, some people not liking it, just because it's a different hop profile. But I really like it.
I guess I can see that too, because I like it so much. I was like, "What are you talking about?" But I'm like, "Yeah, I guess you're right. Like, it is kind of, it's got a few of those elements that maybe you just like it or you don't." Like you said, for me,
it's mainly dankness. It's mainly dankness for me. That it's got a pronounced dank quality to it, which some people
it does
love.
For sure.
Other people not so much.
Yeah, we're both big fans of West Coast IPAs, so I can imagine those that may be sort of more into the New Englands because of the lack of those elements, like the dankness and any sort of piney vibes. probably wouldn't love it as much, but I don't know. I find it interesting in a world of, we all drink haze all the time, and it's, mostly relatively in the same type of ballpark. It's kind of cool to have something that's like, whoa, that's different. Like, while still retaining a lot of the things that you love about it, like the mouthfeel and the visuals and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Unlike West Coast IPAs, like you certainly wouldn't want, dankness or pine or resinous or any of these qualities to be your driving flavor.
Yes.
But as a nuance, as long as we want a very, very fruit forward hop profile pretty much all the time. But if you can add, layers of to that, I think that works really well.
Hell yeah! You guys ever do West Coasts?
We've done it one time.
One time.
We will play around with it. Like, I really am just not a big fan of the style. Like, I do like where it's, and I like that's what got me into craft beer. Like, was West Coast IPAs. Like, I remember going down for the first time to Portland, and like we were on a brewery tour, and the guide is saying, we're going to Breakside Brewery next, and they've got this 130 IBU IPA, and like that's all you're just chasing IBUs. Like that was if it didn't
was
have
the style of the time.
yeah, if it didn't have 70 IBUs in it, like it was a waste of my time. I didn't want to try it. But yeah, no, I'm less interested in the style. I do like kind of the new age West Coast IPA, like where it is more. It has a lot of the good qualities and less of the things I don't like. They aren't as bitter. They're more dry hop focused. So they're kind of like like the new age West Coast IPA's got a really nice balance to it. I still just genuinely prefer hazy IPAs.
Yeah.
In my experience, like in our limited experience, West Coast IPAs still sell a little bit lesser. If you care about Untappd ratings and such, they rate a little bit lesser.
Yeah.
Because I don't really like them that much, or like as a team, we don't know what we're super interested in brewing. There's just not a lot of incentive to, do a ton of it anyways. But it is something we'll do more of. Like we have that kind of in our plans, just because we want to see kind of what we've got in that category and try to perfect that ourselves too.
That makes sense, and you've actually kind of mentioned that a few times this evening, and I think it's an important thing to note that you guys brew what you and the team like, and Nate could probably echo it, and I bet you could too from your experience going to breweries, from the people that you know. I always find the breweries who brew what the team likes, whether it's like if there's a head brewer or a team of people who are making these decisions, those are the breweries who just make the best beers of whatever they decide to make, because they like it. And I just think that's an important thing, because sometimes you're like, okay, well, that, and I don't see this happen as much lately, but how we were talking earlier about when haze was starting to kick off, like late 2016, early 2017 out here, and a lot of breweries just fronted on it for years, and then all of a sudden, maybe in 2020 they did their first one, and it was super reluctant, or maybe it was not that late, maybe a year or two before that, but you can just tell you have someone that, here, this is our New England IPA, and it's usually not the greatest thing in the world, and it's you can tell that the brewery kind of just did it because they thought they had to do it, but they went into it, but they thought they had to because that's what people want. So I think
for sure
I've had that a lot in multiple styles, mostly in haze, but I think it's important that you guys stick to your guns and hey man, this is what we're about. If you don't like West Coast, then you shouldn't be feel like you have to make that stuff. Like you said, and I hell yeah, they would sell less. They're very few and far between across the board. I don't know, but when you get a good one, they are really good. But it's cool that you guys are just sort of sticking to it. Maybe eventually you might try one, and you're like, yo, I would like to do something like this, and maybe you guys will do it internally because you all enjoyed that beer, and then what you make will be extra fire because you're really into it, as opposed to kind of just, I don't know, should we add one? We probably should. Everyone else is doing that type of approach,
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, we do try to wait. We're very aware of trends. It'd be silly not to be, but we do try to wait until we're personally excited to do it. I do have a huge amount of nostalgia kind of with the style.
Right.
Fat Tug IPA. I don't know if you aware
Drift,
of it.
Driftwood.
Like that's the beer, the quintessential beer from out west. Like that's kind of what has hooked so many people out there on craft beer in general. So there's that aspect to it that I like, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But yeah, I think regardless of what you're doing, if you're genuinely interested in it, you're going to do it a lot better. Like it's going to be a lot easier to be excited about it, and especially when it comes to something in this realm, like when you're trying to develop flavor profiles and things of that nature, it's a lot easier to do that based on what you want versus what you're thinking people might want out of it. Like if you can just try it and be like, I love this, I don't like it, I want to change this about it. If you're doing that based on your own perception of it, your own interest in it, versus I think people are going to want this to be more this or that. It's just much harder, thing to take on, and that's true in anything. So yeah, I think you do need to be aware of trends. You do still need to sell the thing at the end of the day, but you're setting yourself up for success if you're doing something that you enjoy or focusing on categories that you enjoy.
Yeah, man, that's a good way to put it. That you're like, yeah, I can just sort of see. Like obviously you mentioned with the trends, like something like smoothie sours, like whatever, like that's is that something you guys have ever done, by the way? Smoothie sours?
Yeah, we've got a series called Zombie, and we do it's kind of like we do Zombie, which is blends of different fruits, and then we do Zombie Surprise, which is like there's dessert inspired versions of that. And it's the same deal. Like I drink very little of them. Like I'm not going home and crushing a bunch of them, but I really enjoy them, and enough to certainly contribute on that, for what we're going for, and largely be when it comes to smoothie sours. Like I do the brew schedule at for us. So if we're putting out a smoothie sour, I'm going to come up with a flavor profile, and then we're going to work as a team to decide like what's our ratio going to be. How do we get, like, if we're doing something weird, how do we get that flavor into that beer? How do we get that adjunct into that beer? So it's like hugely a team effort, but it's like I'm usually the one at the start anyways, deciding like this is kind of what we're going to do stylistically. So yeah, like not a category that I drink a ton of, but I make a point of trying enough of them from the right breweries, so I have a very good idea of kind of what's going on. And I love a third of a smoothie sour. I'm not going to drink, 5 of them in a night. But yeah, it's time and place, and they're awesome for what they are, and the people that can buy a case of them and take care of them quickly, like, good for them. But as long as anything we're doing, as long as we have enough knowledge about it to appreciate it and do it well, whether it's what we personally drink a ton of or not, matters a little bit less, as long as we have a genuine appreciation for it and know what we're going for, and can get excited about it too.
Yeah, that's dope. I know what you mean. Like smoothie, I don't know if anyone's drinking 5 smoothie sours a night. That would be diabetes right there, mate. Like that's
Oh, they do. Like we've got every single because we don't ship them. Like we don't ship smoothie sours, but we've got and for obvious reasons, but they generally do hold up just fine. Like especially this time of year, 2 days in the mail, they're going to be fine. So we've got a number of people that reach out via Instagram. We know that you don't ship these, but will you ship them? And like we've got people that'll get a case of every single one that we do. I'm like, I don't know what you're doing with this, but like, God bless you. I like that you're you're gonna take this down. Wow. And I'll say they might blow up. I don't think they will, but if you're okay with that, then yeah, like shoot me an e-transfer. I'll pay for it personally and send it out, and away we go.
Wow. Okay. A case of smoothies. All right, that kind of blew my mind a little bit. Like, I'm a big fan of them. I don't really have them too often, to be honest. Why don't I have them too often? I feel like there's not that many here compared to Quebec. Would you say that too, Nate? Like, there's like less smoothies here that are regularly available than.
Yeah, I would say that, and also probably even less now than there were 6 months to a year ago. It's not I feel like people are not as wild for them At least here in Ontario, at least here in Ontario, it's I feel like it's kind of died down a little bit.
I'm even thinking in Montreal, I feel like there's a bunch of breweries that really proactively do them, and they're even starting to maybe distro them locally a little bit. So I'm like, I think out there's just a bigger smoothie scene for whatever the reason it is. So that would probably make sense. And also, I don't know how much I really want them when it's minus whatever, like it kind of feels more like a summer thing.
Yeah, it's more of a summer drink.
Yeah, interesting. I can't get over the people buying cases of them, man. That's fucking crazy. I just like I always used to get stressed about them when I had them and like went really nuts. Put them at the very front of the fridge so they didn't ever get lost because I didn't want to. I was always worried that they would go. Well, not that they would explode because they're in the fridge, but just like drop and then they become gross, type of thing. So I was never sure how long. So I guess, like you said, if someone's buying a case, you must be crushing multiple of those bad boys a night. Get through it in a couple weeks. That's a lot of sugar.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. No, I'd say it definitely has cooled down a little bit. But like there's still a really big market for it for sure. And Quebec is, my opinion, like the most American beer scene in Canada, which I love. Like I love the Quebec beer scene. Like the proximity to Vermont and all that, I'm sure has a big role in that.
Yeah.
But like it's a lot of the things in the U.S. like smoothie sours, they don't translate as well. It's just a different palate, different preferences in Canada. But Quebec for me is it has the closest, in terms of like the hype you can generate there amongst your audience and some of the styles that do well there that don't necessarily do as well elsewhere. I really love the Quebec beer scene. I like that about it.
That's such a fascinating comment because I was like so vocal early on. Nate knows where I'm going with this about Quebec. It used to piss me off, bro, because they refused to do haze. So when haze was popping, and I got like insanely obsessed, and I think it was only because I couldn't get it really here. Ontario did it first. Quebec were very, very resistant, and the first brewery Boreal did the Nord-Est, but then like when Massorum opened in I think it was summer 2018. Then I was like, thank you. This is exactly it. And they were the first, what I would call American style brewery that did, Crispies, haze, smoothies, pastry, like type of thing. Like that's their whole jam. They've expanded since, but that was their kind of premise. And there's a bunch of breweries like Sir John and Brewski and so on and so forth that do things like that. That like the sort of in quick succession were kind of started to do the same thing, but it was like years of me always having to come here to get, whether it was like going to Bellwoods or like, I can't even think off the top of my head now what else, but breweries like that, and Quebec just wouldn't do it, and it was killing me. And so it's actually really funny to hear in hindsight after all of that you're saying that they are the most American ones, when it really, really wasn't like that. It was kind of like pulling teeth. And people told they told me personally that other breweries, like well-known established Quebec ones, were telling them that you're going to fail, man. Like there's no chance that you guys are going to make it here with the styles that you're doing. Nobody wants that stuff. When that was very obviously short-sighted and missed the mark there. But they were I knew people in Quebec. It always tripped me out because I'd see them check in on Untappd to the brand new foam Burlington Beer Co. Hill Farmstead releases every weekend. I'm like, people were literally, because we couldn't get it there. I was always coming here a lot, so I was able to get pretty satiated because I was able to come to Ontario. I went to Vermont relatively regularly, but not every weekend. And these dudes were going down. Imagine how much you're spending every weekend, and you're probably getting a hotel too, like going down like Friday, Saturday night just to catch all the new releases, plus the 30% of American dollars, all just to get all this stuff because they couldn't get it at home. And then those people, they still go, but obviously they're a lot more satiated at home now. So anyway, it's an interesting point.
Yeah, and it definitely supports what we've seen there, because something we've talked about with our friend Noah, who's does beerism. Like in our group chat, we've often talked about how, as a hype scene, like you're saying, Greg, like Quebec kind of leapfrogged Ontario in that in that regard, in kind of how it's a hype beer scene. Like if you look at Brasserie du Bac Canada, like if you go back to 2020 with their anniversary releases, that was one of those things of like, as soon as the site goes live, in like 3.5 minutes it's sold out. And and if you know you didn't have your credit card preloaded in your browser and you weren't like ready to go as soon as soon as launch, like you're done. Like just finished. And if you and it would have been insane if we were to tell Cee from like 2017 that's what it's going to be like in 3 years.
I would never have believed you.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny how it went like that. Because I always thought Ontario, because it was culturally, I would argue, more closer to America than Quebec is, obviously. You know, you go to Toronto, sometimes you go to parts of Toronto and I'm like, it just feels like I'm in the States. And this is someone who, like, I went there, goes there regularly, been there regularly, lived there, and now I'm pretty close to it and I go there pretty regularly, but it still feels American to me. So it's funny that the French province has become the American beer scene, and here sort of, we have our moments here, I guess. But it's, I think you're right. It's definitely like, you both are right, like it's become that. Which is interesting. It's just a strange phenomenon how that's happened, because it started here. Like, why didn't Ontario keep that up? Or maybe just Quebec was so far behind, they were like, fuck, and they just went crazy and just went nuts on everything. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Like it's.
Oh, sorry, Greg. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like culturally, obviously, Quebec is different from the rest of the country, so there might be just something to that in terms of like you know, because a big part of what makes the US is just from a beer perspective, is the amount of hype and excitement and like the extent to which, you know, they can put these breweries up on a pedestal and wait in line overnight for them, and it's just a different culture that exists there. Right. Which is really hard to replicate here, and there might be just something about the Quebec culture that lends itself well to that, but yeah, there's probably like Quebec beer also, it's more established than anywhere else in Canada too, and you have that strong kind of Belgian tradition. So there probably was a bit of resistance in terms of moving to a more progressive approach. But yeah, I think having like if you go to Hill Farmstead, or a little bit less so these days, but if you went to Hill Farmstead 5 years ago, 80% of the plates were Quebec. Like it was heavily, predominantly people coming down from Quebec. And it's what, like an hour from, you know,
2
Montreal
hours door to door.
To Burlington?
2 hours.
Yeah, so, and, well, you know, in Niagara Falls or in Ontario, like we're a bordering state too, or bordering, you know, city to the US, but like New York State historically has not been an overly progressive beer scene, or Michigan or some of these other, you know, bordering states, is a little bit more. Like if you, like with, you know, Other Half and Mortalis and some, like, but you're driving 3 hours, and these are new breweries, versus like in you know, Vermont, like having Alchemist and Hill Farmstead and like some like truly, you know, top tier world class breweries being right there. You know, I'm sure that influenced. I know it influenced, you know, the state of beer in Quebec in a big way.
Yeah, 100%. That's actually a really good point. I just noticed the time. Should we go to the next one?
Yeah, let's keep it rolling.
Can we do a quick piss as well?
Mate, do it up. I probably need to go as well. So let's do like an exchange system. You're up.
Right back.
Beauty. Yeah, that's a really good point. This is all fascinating. And like I was saying earlier, like I'm going to upstate New York next weekend. My first time in. I was supposed to go last weekend, but I was sick as fuck. First time in 3 years doing any sort of traveling outside of Canada. mostly because I was one of my Canadian passports. Like a whole ordeal as an Aussie. Like it's super annoying. So I'm looking forward to being like, "Hello, sir." Boom. Like, all right, cheers, and then just fucking go.
Just roll on through.
Cannot wait. And we check. You we bring in the pup, and you're allowed to bring the dog as long as he looks looks healthy and stuff, and he's more than 6 months. And he hasn't been anywhere crazy, which he has not. But yeah, we're going to go. Like a friend of mine is a brewer at Mortalis, so we're going to head down there. But it isn't like I think it's like 50 or 55 minutes to the border from Hamilton, and then Buffalo is literally over the border, which is very interesting to me because Burlington is like it's 45 minutes or so to the border, and then you've still got to drive another hour or some shit into Burlington. Whereas here, you literally cross the border and you're like, boom, in Buffalo. And I believe there's like 45 minutes to Rochester from there, or something like that. And then the brewery scene, I've been like mapping them out a little bit. Nothing's really seems to be more than 20, 30 minutes away, which is all pretty relatively convenient. I feel like before I would used to be in Montreal and be like, oh, it kind of sucks to be on that side because there wasn't anything much in Buffalo and Rochester. But now it seems like it's a really like nuanced scene with a whole bunch of different stuff going on. Whilst it is different, we're just talking about like traveling because I'm going next weekend to Rochester and Buffalo. And I was like, before, it kind of like, oh, well, for one, just shits on it. But now I'm like, I don't know, man. There's two other halves, and like you said, Mortalis and Fifth Frame and like Thin Man and Big Ditch and all this type of stuff out there. That like, I don't know. It seemed I'm excited just to see what's popping in comparison, just because I hadn't really experienced that for a long time. So I'm keen.
Have you been to Frequentum in I think it's pronounced Frequentum in Canandaigua?
No, where is that?
It's probably an hour from Rochester. It's probably 20 minutes from other half.
Okay.
I put that on your list.
I'm literally doing
they're
that.
Awesome.
I'm doing that as I type because I know, and so it's probably closer to Rochester, right? So.
Well, Rochester's kind of your furthest west, and then as you move further east, you're getting into I think Mortalis first, then other half, and then Frequentum would be kind of your closest towards like Finger Lakes, towards Canandaigua Lake.
Got it. So Frequent UM.
Yeah, they're
okay.
Frequentum UM, but they're pretty new.
Okay.
They're awesome. They're fantastic.
All right.
Really cool space. Really cool space too.
EM, you're right. Okay, perfect. Done. This is great, man. Because I'm just excited to sort of see what's going on out here because it's a whole different situation. I'll run and do my tinkle now. You guys can yap, and I'll be back in 30 seconds.
All right. Yeah, so I think we're going to be cracking Rhythm next.
Yep.
Which I see here. Okay, so this is straight up Citra and Galaxy. You want to give us a bit of an intro on this while we're waiting for C to get back?
Yeah, this is the up until recently the only double IPA we brewed more than once.
Okay.
I think this is the fourth time we've done it. We just did Dream On for the second time, but I think that's the only other double IPA that we've done more than once. So, yeah. Citra Galaxy started off as an even split. Citra and Galaxy through time, we've been a little bit less happy with the Galaxy that we get, and that seems to be available, period. So we've leaned it more towards Citra kind of through time. Galaxy is it's a little bit inconsistent. It's not as fruity as it once was, so it's still a very nice hop in the appropriate combination. Like it still brings a lot of really, really nice things to the table. But it works, in our opinion, better as an undercard at this point, like just adding complementing kind of your primary hop, which in this case is Citra, which is for us our favorite hop, most versatile. We use it all over the place.
Yeah.
And so this beer has special place in our hearts. It's become kind of our pre-anniversary double IPA. So the last few years, it's been our last release before our anniversary, and then when our anniversary comes around, when we're putting out all these different beers, it's also available kind of through those festivities because it was the last beer that we did. Yeah. I love this beer. I think every time we do it, it gets a little bit better. And interested to see what you guys think.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say that about Galaxy, and I think you now might be the third the third person that we've talked to who has said in the last year that that Galaxy's been a little off. The first one who said that was Troy from Badlands, who was saying that he was disappointed with with the recent stock of Galaxy, and I can't remember who else it was that said it, but this is this is becoming a bit of a theme that that Galaxy's been off in the past year.
Which one are we doing?
So we're doing Rhythm now.
Oh, nice.
It's not off. It has, and I think it's more than a year too. It's been several years. It's just it's not what it was. It's a different hop now. It brings a different quality. So if you can harness it and use it appropriately, it still is fantastic. It's just not you used to be able to do 100% Galaxy beers, and they were the best.
Yeah.
It's now you got to use it as a portion of your hop. And there's a lot of hops like that. Like a lot of hops aren't intended or don't work well as the star. There's a handful of hops that do. Galaxy used to be one of those. Yeah, in my opinion, is not anymore. And yeah, we had Troy by the brewery yesterday. Yesterday.
Oh, nice.
And so we were chatting, like we're all chatting about Galaxy and a bunch of other things. But yeah, I know Troy's feelings on Galaxy as well.
It's interesting that you put it like that. That it's like it's not the same hop. It's really just about how you. Oh, Nate dropped off. Maybe he battery died. But why isn't it the same hop? Like, what's the reasoning behind that? Like, is there any what changed in Galaxy to make it not to be the same?
Yeah, like the drying, the kilning process has changed a lot through the years. Again, just speaking about this yesterday, and Troy is a wealth of information on all subjects. But he was kind of giving his 2 cents on it. Like the one thing that's unique to about Australian hops in general is there's not really crops in terms of like you can go out and get or lots like where you can go select hops. You can go get the lot of Citra that you really like, or the lot of Mosaic. Like in Australia, they take all of whatever it is, Galaxy or Big Secret or whatever, and they blend it all, and that's just kind of what's available.
Right.
So there's probably a certain degree of, watering it down in terms of like there might have been really good hops in that. There might have been some poor hops. You land somewhere in the middle.
Blending it. Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that, play into that. But, at the end of the day, like when you drank an all Galaxy IPA in 2017, it was ridiculously fruit forward. All the fruits you want, and it's just not that anymore. But it again, like if you pair it with a hop that can kind of hold up to it and bring all those fruity qualities, and then use Galaxy as kind of bringing some layers to it, it works really well. But for us, when we use Galaxy at more than like a third, we don't really like it. So this is an example where it's 4 parts Citra and 2 parts Galaxy.
Okay. Well, on that note, may we cheers and get this in us.
Cheers.
Cheers, y'all. Oh my goodness. Damn. Oh, this one just dropped, eh? Oh, 1st February too.
Yeah, yes. All 3 of those: Spill, Soul to Squeeze, Rhythm, all last Friday.
Super fresh. Oh man. So like the Galaxy and Citra. What was the percentage of Galaxy in this one? Excuse me if you already said that.
It was one third. Yeah.
Mm.
So we did 30 kilo dry hop, and it was 10 Galaxy.
So I'm
And
seeing,
even at
yes.
even at 1/3, that still comes through quite punchy. Like man, like Galaxy certainly like still certainly has some legs. Like
Yeah.
at even 1/3, like that's really got like a really kind of notable Galaxy bite to us.
For sure. Yeah, with something like Sabro, for example, which is like the most dominating hop for me. We'll
That's fair.
often use that at like a 1/6, and it like Galaxy's kind of approaching that for me, like just how loud it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is good. Which is good if you really like it. But I like to keep we like to keep those hops a little bit at bay and just let them kind of be a little more subtle.
Yeah. Oh man, this is crazy. The body on this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Big citrus notes. Again, I'm definitely seeing that as a consistency. This is also a fascinating thing of drinking a whole series of beers from the same brewery, and you sort of start to see those like patterns as far as like obviously the house yeast and things like that that kind of like stick around, and like the flavor profiles that come from all this. This is fantastic, man. Yeah, definitely tons of citrus. I only had a couple sips, but tons of citrus. Wicked body. The body is insane, which is very consistent.
Yeah, that's something we pay a huge amount of attention to. So, I appreciate that you feel that way.
Oh man, this is like I really feel like body seems to be arguably. I'd like to hear what you guys think. Like the probably main separator of a quality New England IPA to otherwise. I would imagine that's something that I feel like it's just such a key part of it all.
It's huge, yeah. To carry the rest of what you're doing, if you don't have the mouthfeel on point, it detracts in a big way. So there's a lot of things that go into that. But yeah, if you have the flavor profile working with the with the palate weight, there's a synergy that happens there, and it's something that we pay a lot of attention to.
Yeah, I can definitely see why. I mean, look, ranging from it, and it's been extra interesting going from like the 4.5, 6.5, and now 8.2, and they're all like you can see the consistency in the body, and obviously it ramps up. If it didn't, it would be weird, but it really does. It's almost like having this while this is like exceptional. It's actually it gives a lot of props to the lower ABV guys to be able to hold up next to this. That you guys have really, I imagine that's something you guys have really worked on as far as the bodies for the low ABV ones too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, with double IPAs, it takes care of itself to a certain degree.
Yeah.
When you get into lower alcohol stuff, that's where you really gotta think about how you're gonna drive a little bit of mouthfeel and fullness into it. Because especially when you get into like 4.5%. It's very, and when you're being pretty aggressive with your hop usage, it's pretty easy to fall out of balance. Versus with double IPAs, like you have a good amount of sweetness and body as a result to kind of work with. Takes care of itself to a certain degree.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I mean, just based on the sheer volume of grains and stuff. But no, this one. This looks like okay. That was what I was going to bring up. So I was about to ask you, is it the first time? And I know it's not because you've got a separate thing for like Rhythm 2020. Excuse me, 2023 in here, which I like. I know Badlands does that a lot, and I like that because, and it comes back to the Galaxy conversation that. Whilst the hop, just like the wines you have in the Cab Sav in 2019 and 2020, and there's different seasons and growing seasons and things changes. It's an agricultural product, just like hops. And this one has Galaxy and Citra, and the Galaxy and Citra batches vary year on year. Oops, let me remove my other one.
Nope, there's two of you.
All right, I'm gonna swap out the battery in a minute. I know, right? You can never get too much of me. I'm gonna change this out instead. But yeah, like just year on year, I imagine that it would change. So it's probably a. I'd love to hear the reason for doing the year noted thing for a beer like this that you've done in the past.
Yeah, as saying so we haven't when it comes to IPAs, double IPAs that we've done. There's very few of them we've done more than once. This is far and away that we've done the most times. I think it's the fourth time we've done it.
Okay.
And yeah, like when you're doing it at most once a year, not only are you victim to raw materials and how those are going to evolve through time, but also we are actively evolving the beer too. Like the last time we did Rhythm, the ratio of Citra to Galaxy was different. Our house yeast was different. So we tried to keep, for those that have had Rhythm before and like that beer, we've tried to keep the things that they like about it consistent and in line with what they would expect. But we're trying to improve it, and we're changing things, a fair amount, enough that warrants, putting that, 2023, 2024 next to it, because they will be different. Ideally, they're getting better every year. But yeah, things like our pale ale flow, like if we do that 3 times a year, it doesn't make sense to call it batch 1, batch 2, batch 3, whatever. Like they're much more subtle differences. We're always trying to improve those too. But when it comes to something like this, they do change quite a bit from year to year. So part of that's appealing to people who are into Untappd, myself included, that like to check in a new beer. You got that 2023 you can check in now. But also, like, we're interested to see what you think of last year's versus this year's, and are we going it like we think it's better, or we're certainly trying to make it better? Do the ratings support that? Just in general, trying to kind of see what our end consumers are thinking.
I like that, man. That's cool. Yeah, I think there's like obviously consistency is the one thing that makes craft beer as far as like the I was gonna say like not the lack thereof, but the difficulty of that consistency for craft beer. It's and to be able to sort of like acknowledge the uniqueness of this particular one, being that it's a different. Essentially, it's not the exact same product, and it's almost impossible to make it as such. I don't know. I just think that's really cool. It's a great way to go about it, to acknowledge it that way. Yeah, it's very.
Yeah,
cool.
I think consistent quality is kind of the goal. Consistency from like a flavor perspective matters a little bit less, I think, for craft breweries or for like small craft breweries. I listen to a lot of podcasts as well. When you listen to a lot of these big breweries from the U.S., like when you get into your Stone level or your Bell's level or Founders, when they're out doing hop selection, and they've got some of these beers that they rely on, that they're their flagships. It's super important that those beers taste the same all the time. They don't need it. They don't necessarily want them to be improving. They want to taste the same. They want to be very consistent. So when they're out doing hop selection and they're looking for Citra, they want Citra that tastes like Citra to them. It needs to taste exactly the same. Versus like people like us, like we're driving after whatever tastes the best. If this version of Rhythm is wildly different than the last, as long as it's better, then it doesn't matter. That's fine. But if you're that person that gets a 6-pack of your Stone IPA every week, and you want to rely on it and expect it to taste that way, it's different. It's just a different business model. Both of them are honorable in their own right. But yeah, for us, it's just whatever we can do to make the beer taste best as possible. When we have brands that we do with some consistency, you don't want it to overnight. Like you want to do little changes in, to make them be better every time you brew them. You don't necessarily want to do drastic changes, but the goal is change. Like, is you want to be changing for the better.
Definitely. That's a really good way to look at it. Because I feel like there is like, it's two different models. There's the like sort of, it's all, I don't want to say mass produced, but the sort of larger scale produced craft beer like a Stone, or, and I don't even know what else in Canada would be like that aside from maybe BAOS or Steam Whistle or something perhaps.
Those are probably the best examples.
That are still craft, yeah. And then there's everything else, which if you're some sort of an educated craft beer drinker, you're going to know that part of the game is it's just, shit's going to change because the hops change.
Even like Great Lakes Canuck, even that would be one of the like in the same realm. I would say that they're probably really just looking for that to taste the same every time.
Definitely,
100%.
and that's a great example. Whereas like almost everything else, so it's almost like those particular beers are absolutely the minority in. Since we're in Ontario, let's call it Ontario craft beer. It would still apply to Quebec and to whatever the whole country and so on and so forth. But yeah, those ones are they're arguably a different consumer too.
For sure.
Yeah, there's overlap. Like when you like, for example, like
absolutely
Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't want that beer to change even a little bit. Like
the
fact that that's the same beer every time, and that's a part of my arsenal. Like, and you know exactly what to expect. They get creative in other parts of their beer program. It's not like it's all that way, but like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, it's amazing. It's phenomenal. Or like Bell's Two Hearted, you want it to be that way every single time. And I think like your most adventurous beer drinkers, like a lot of them, still have their go-tos, the ones that like just it's nostalgia. Like it just you remember drinking that 10 years ago. So there's room for both. For small breweries that don't have a lot of distribution, that's not a factor. But for these bigger breweries that have a huge amount of distribution, and you have people that rely on you day in, day out to produce the same flavors, like it's just different mindset, different goals, different priorities.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And I guess, like you said, there is a big crossover. That's true, because like the three of us would happily go and grab a 6-pack of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, but we would 100%. Also grab a 6-pack of Rhythm. And it would be okay if this version was not exactly like the last version, because we also understand that things change and it's okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is, I guess, part of the consumer education side of craft beer, particularly when bringing people in to the industry, people who hadn't experienced a lot about beer and, trying to learn about it, making them understand that, hey, man, like it's small batch, and small batch things can change pretty rapidly, even between flagships, which I guess for you guys is probably not the largest problem in the world, being that you don't really have that much that you're pumping out. Like, it's not like you're doing like a batch every other day or whatever of the same beer type of thing. So it's kind of more of it's a different situation for Counterpart.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like any of the flagships that we do have, the expectation would be that they'll evolve with the beer scene. So things like a Pilsner, they're gonna stay a little bit more. That expectations get changed that much. But for something like a Pale Ale, like if you had Jutsu 7 years ago or whenever they came out with it, it wasn't a hazy Pale Ale.
No.
Yep.
The expectation for a Pale Ale has changed, and they've done a beautiful job at evolving that beer through time. They want it to be, I'd imagine, what people want out of a Pale Ale at any given time, and that changes.
Yep.
So yeah, you gotta keep up with that, and you don't want to necessarily make big swift changes. They probably had one change where they changed their yeast drastically or something like that, but it doesn't. For breweries of this size, you just want something that's going to be in line with what your consumers want. Less concerned, about consistent quality, but not necessarily consistency.
Great point. And I love the idea about the evolving, because I think it's like you mentioned, Jutsu is a great example. I know they did the same with Witch Shark, and there was a minority of voices were like, oh, make it West Coast again, but like it's a sticky, dank 9% beer. It worked better as a New England anyway. And I feel like that's some of the. I just think it's more like it's a more of a forward thinking approach to being a craft brewery, like not to get, for lack of a better word, like romantic about the beer. Like if this is what spill is or flow is or whatever, like you said, it'll change with the tastes of the brewers. So you guys first and foremost, because as your taste change, you guys are essentially ahead of the curve, arguably more than most of the drinkers. Maybe alongside some of them, but most of the people probably aren't like traveling constantly and trading and going nuts and stuff like that, right? So it's like you're keeping tabs on things, and if things all of a sudden change from being New England, which is highly unlikely, but it could happen, you're at least able to pivot and keep that brand the same and be like, hey, this is where the tastes are going, so we can sort of move it there, like, slowly. It doesn't have to be an immediate change, but it's cool to be able to keep a brand, because the brand, I guess, is what people remember. Coming back earlier, we're talking about psychology and stuff. Like, it's like people are cool with the brand. If the brand changes, there'll be some people who'll probably be like, or like, keep it the same. But most people are going to be pretty cool with that, because their tastes are going to change too. And if their tastes haven't changed, they will. It's just they don't know it yet, because maybe they're not at the forefront of craft beer, cutting edge, bleeding edge, nuances and the new stuff and the innovation and everything. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, like the goal is with beers that we brew often, like our flow, for example, we want that to be your favorite pale ale. So yeah, that'll change through time. And yeah, like when you're especially like on a hyper local level, you do control, like on a greater scheme, no, but on a really local level, you control trends quite a bit yourself. So if you start pushing things in one direction or the other, knowing that it's the better direction to go in, whether your customer likes it, knows it or not, you do control these things. It's your job to know what your consumers is going to like before they do. Ideally, if you're on top of things.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. You don't know before the consumers do. Yeah, that's very cool. No, I love that. I know I almost feels like we just cracked this beer, but like in the interest of getting through what we need to get through, do we need to keep it going?
I think we should.
Okay, no problem.
Are you guys finishing your beers, or am I the only one that's actually finishing them as we go through here?
I finished the first one, and I've got about a little less than half left of the other two, and probably the same for this one. But I finish them afterwards, because once we finish the pod, we just start like sipping them. So if you're going hard, I respect it, Greg. I respect it.
Thus far I've been finished. So if my quality diminishes over the next beer or two, then you'll know why.
Look, to be honest, 6 is more than what we normally do, but I'm not against it, and I think it's kind of cool because like clearly Nate and I are both big fans of what you're doing here, man, and like this is cool to like hear it directly from you. I think this is just really fascinating convo. So if you're down to keep it cruising, we are. For
yeah,
sure.
100%.
Okay,
and much respect, man. I've got a 9-month-old who's going to be getting me up no later than 6, and and you're going harder than I am. So respect.
I get certain things with the wife. I get passes on, and if I'm doing things like this, I get a bit. So you got to take advantage of it.
It's work.
Yep, for sure.
You're working.
But at 9 months too, like you're right in the thick of things. You're in the fucking trenches right now. So.
Oh yeah, I'm very lucky. He's sleeping through the night very reliably, but it's early mornings for sure.
Yeah. My little guy is 19 months, 20 months right now, and it's infinitely easier. So I feel
Okay, that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Hope is around the corner, Nate.
Yeah.
Grab that.
I'm gonna go grab it.
Yeah, no worries. So the next one, Uncle Greg, if I may call you that. I have an Uncle Greg, so it sort of feels right to me.
Of course.
We are doing Dream On, another double IPA, because we are not scared and we are not fucking around this evening. Tell us about this one, sir. Did you drink the whole of the rhythm?
Ish.
I am impressed. I
thought I was keeping up. I didn't realize that.
No, like, and look, that's what I was kind of saying earlier. One of the classic things, we didn't really talk about it on the pod, but I have, Nate always laughs at me, I have a problem when I'm drinking fantastic beer, having fantastic conversations. I'm like, so I've really, and then I'll wake up the next day and I'll be like, bro, I'm fucked. Like, I'm a mess. So I've been really, my goal for 2023 is to be more responsible during the podcast and kind of, because as you can imagine, 2 to 3 hours and you're crushing all these, whatever. I'm a bit of a lightweight, so it hits me. So I've been trying to be more responsible, and then afterwards, whilst I usually do all the preparation of the pod right afterwards, so I just don't mess around. Then I'll just keep just going between the glasses and just be like, blah, 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 and sipping them all and stuff. So I'll get there.
How often are you guys doing these? Would they be every week?
Every week.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's you can't get after it every single week necessarily.
Yeah, I would probably drink this much on a regular evening. No, not that much. But on my bigger drinking nights. But I would spread it over 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Whereas this is like a 2 to 3 hour window. So I realized I kept getting messed up because I'm so excited and enjoying the beer so much that I'm not doing myself any favors. So I'm like, okay, let me try. Particularly tonight with 2 double IPAs, like that to me is like vomit town. So
it's a heavy night.
Yeah. So I need to pace. If I pace, I'm good. In a short amount of time, we have a problem. So.
And this is a very heavy night for me. And to be upfront, I am not finishing these tonight. And we just did another recording last night as well, and I'm already struggling today. So and on a normal weeknight, I'll have 1 or 2, and on a weekend night I'll have 2 to 3. So podcast nights are always a little heavier for me.
I didn't know that. I thought you had more on a regular night.
No. On work nights, it's no more than 2.
Okay. So it's just me who's crazy.
No, I'm in your I think the big thing is socially, the drinking pace just accelerates drastically.
Yeah, because we're enjoying the convo, we're chilling,
definitely.
We're talking about the beer, and all of a sudden it's like, fuck, now it's been 2-3 hours and we've downed all these beers type of thing.
If I'm drinking a double IPA, that's going to take me, 45 minutes, an hour normally.
Yeah, typically, for sure.
And also knowing that we were going to hop on this call at 9 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, I'm sitting there, I'm like, do I have a beer? Do I not have a beer? Just going to time.
Honestly, bro. Go.
Normally at 5 o'clock on a what day are we on? Friday.
Friday.
Normally 5 o'clock on a Friday. I started kind of going down that lane, but
yep, same.
So you're making up for it. Well, first of all, I appreciate you waiting for us. And it's always a little difficult for me too. Like sometimes I'm having dinner on the night I would normally just be drinking regularly for dinner. I'm like, I'm just gonna have a non-alcoholic beer or sparkling water or something to balance that out. It's a whole ordeal, but to me I was like, if I knew tonight, I knew we're gonna have 4, but I know it's almost like we talked you into the 6. You were the smart one actually, and we were like, hey, we got 6, Greg, how do you feel about 6? And then you were like, all right. So
full disclosure for your audience, I thought that was just kind of what you guys do. I thought you did 4 beers, so
we do.
I sent you 2 of 6 different beers, I think.
Correct.
More just for you guys to enjoy in your own time. I didn't necessarily know we were going to get through them all tonight. So the first one we did, which was Full Circle, I didn't actually have it on hand. This one too, I don't have on hand. I know the beer well, so I can talk about it. But
What are
I'm
you doing
drinking
in lieu?
I'm drinking another Soul to Squeeze right now.
Oh,
there you go.
Stepping back. You're a smart one. I like it.
But I'm the only one finishing my beers tonight too, though. So.
Well, I'm just saying I'm gonna finish them afterwards. I always do. It's kind of like my favorite thing, and I'll like do it slowly because I'm also taking the one word tasting notes. So it's kind of cool to go back to it, and then I'll write the full sentences whilst I'm kind of sipping that beer. Though I can't with Kölsch. That shit is gone. But
and I'm the Kölsch I crushed. That one was just like that was too fucking good, and I couldn't control myself on that one.
To be honest, I was watching you drink it, and I was looking at your glass the whole time, and I was like, Nate is getting into this tonight. He's loving this.
Couldn't help myself.
I was going to bring it up to you later, but I like that was very funny to me. So the next one we're doing, Greg, this is Dream On. So this is a double IPA, also 8.2 with Simcoe, Cashmere, and Sabro. Very cool combo. I want to sip this. It looks gorgeous, just like everything else looks gorgeous. Can we put it in us? Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Oh, that's fantastic. One other thing to mention as well here that I think we need to, that's worth bringing up is that, you know, we're having now, this is the fourth New England IPA in a row, and they're very different. All of them are very, very different. And I feel like that's one, you know, sort of like, I'm about to say like the criticism, like there's not that many people that don't like haze. If you don't like haze, do you like beer? But like they're, you know, I think it's kind of difficult to make for, and this is two of the same ABV and another two that are very different. Like these beers are all very like distinct and unique. You want to maybe talk us through this one, bro?
Yeah, so that is pretty deliberate on our end.
Okay.
I appreciate that you feel that way. Yeah, like for me, and probably most people, like Treehouse is what you're going for in terms of like if you're a hobby beer program, that's kind of what you're going for. Especially like it's a little bit different now because the expansion that they've done, the size of the brewery there, they have the stuff that comes out of there these days is a little bit more consistent, a little bit less, you know, a little bit less different from beer to beer in a good way or bad way, however you look at it. But if you tried Treehouse's stuff at their, you know, their old system when they're out of Munson, just how they did entirely IPAs, and they were just so different and all equally great, kind of, you know, however they chose to, you know, whatever their approach was to it. So that was a big inspiration for me and a lot of people in terms of how we're going to try to brew our IPAs. So yeah, there's a lot of things that go into that. Like we do try to be pretty consistent with our grain bill. We tweak things here and there, pretty consistent with our water profile, tweak things here and there, yeast, etc. But like the dry hop really does do a huge amount of the heavy lifting. In this case, this beer, like we actually use different yeast for this beer, you know, just playing around, didn't use our house yeast. So it did impact this beer quite a bit. I think it's really cool, like, you know, how it stands up to our other IPAs. This is a beer that we brewed once before, same dry hop combination. Is probably like the most well-received double IPA or hoppy beer that we had done to date. You know, Dream On when we did it, and I think it's 2020. So when we did it this year, we wanted to kind of meet that expectation of what people would, you know, think of it, and yeah, different yeast, same dry hop combination. Playing like with Sabro and Cashmere in the same hop blend. It's very coconutty. Like both of those bring that, you know, to the party. A lot of citrus. Simcoe acts kind of as your mediator, you know, amongst those three for me. It kind of ties them together. But yeah, I think it's kind of a different hop profile, but you know, one that's kind of a crowd pleaser as well.
Very cool, man. I can see why. And once again, just to point this out, this was also a 2023 version in Untappd, which I love. So is this, would you say it's mostly for your double IPAs that you do the year thing, or have you done that for singles as well?
No, those would be the only two I think we've done it for. So we are going to get, we're coming up on our 4th year, anniversary, and we have enough, recipes stockpiled now, or brands that we've done where a lot of them we haven't touched them in 3 years. So we're getting to the point now where we do want to kind of revisit some of those recipes. And when we do, you got to kind of reference the fact that we haven't brewed this beer in 3 years. It's going to be quite a bit different. So, there's a number of reasons to do that. Like, for one, there's beers that we really like that we just haven't done in a while. Whether we like the beer itself or the artwork or a combination of the two, we want to bring some of those back. So that'll be a more common thing that we'll be doing, with reaching back into our bag and doing a reinterpretation of it, throw a date on it, and see what people thought then, see what they think now.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love it.
Sorry, go ahead, Cee.
No, I'm just reiterating what I said before. I just think it's like such a dope way to approach that, because it's so authentic, and it's just so like transparent to be like, hey, this is the new version. You saw the one 2019, whatever. Here's a new one. Cool.
Yeah, no, that's good. So with the 3 of the beers that we've had, and one more that we're going to have in the most recent release ahead of the anniversary, is there anything that you wanted to talk about or tease about the upcoming anniversary?
Yeah, for sure. So every year, like 4th year is coming up, March 4th, which is a Saturday. It actually falls this year on our anniversary. Like, we opened on a 4th, which is a Monday. This year it's a Saturday, which is nice.
There you go.
Convenient.
And every year we try to get a little bit bigger. It gets a little more, exhausting and for us to pull off. But we've got 10 releases planned for this year.
Shit.
Doing 6 different collaborations. A couple of them are dipping into the Quebec scene, which we haven't worked with any of those breweries previously, so that was really cool to work with a couple of breweries that we really, really respect, and we're excited that they wanted to be a part of it. And first anniversary tour, we have some barrel aged stuff coming. So when we first opened, we put beer into barrels right away. We had 0 space. We opened with 6,000 square feet, which is a lot of space, but like for what we're doing, it's not a lot of space. Since then, we're 50% greater than that. Now we're up to 9,000 square feet. But initially, we only had room for literally 5 barrels. So we filled 5 barrels. We let them sit for almost 2 years. Released, and now it's deciduous for anyone that knows those beers. They went over really, really well for us. But when we emptied those barrels, that was it. We didn't have any other barrels. So we filled more barrels right after that. But with our approach to barrel-aged beer, largely speaking, unless the beer says otherwise, we're going to let it go. We're going to go long. We're going to go pushing 2 years beyond that if the beer keeps improving. So we released the last of that barrel-aged beer. I think it was like May 2021 or so. So it's been almost 2 years since we released a barrel-aged beer. Since then, we've just been, because we do have more space now, and we've just been filling barrels, stockpiling. And a lot of those barrels are kind of hitting maturity. The older ones are 24 months now. The ones we're releasing for this anniversary are 20 months, just because they were tasting the best. So we've got a blend of rye barrel-aged and bourbon barrel-aged stout. We got a unadjuncted version and an adjuncted version that we're going to release for the anniversary. So we're super pumped about that. Like the first barrel-aged stout that we did, deciduous, it especially in Quebec, actually, like it was a big response to it. So, we're hoping to keep that going. Like I feel like that's where a huge amount of my personal attention goes, and to barrel aged stout. Like so far, it's been a really small part of what we've done, but it's what we plan and envision to be a huge part of, what people think about when they think about us. So really excited to see what people, think about it. I feel like I really know what good barrel aged stout is. I think we're right there in terms of the greats. So we're got a lot of stuff we're excited about, but really excited to get more, barrel aged stout out there and see what people think.
I'm even just taking a look at the. I just looked up Deciduous right now on Untappd, and like it's like 4.65 or something, like as a average. And people are like, I'm just seeing the first few comments. People are losing their shit over this, dude. This sounds really. Yo, I remember. When did you drop the first lot of these?
I think it was like March or April. I think it was like April 2021. We did the regular unadjuncted version.
Yep.
And we knew it was going to be. Or we didn't know. We hoped it was. Well, we knew it was good. We hoped it was going to be popular, or hoped that people are going to be excited about it. So we opened at 10 a.m. We opened 2 hours early that day, hoping there was going to be a line, and there was. Like, it was wrapped around the building. It was awesome.
Nice.
2 months later, we did 2 adjuncted versions of that. So we did like a coffee maple and a vanilla. And a vanilla. Same reaction. We did that with my buddy Bobby from Eskerhart. You guys probably don't know him because he's a home brewer, but his reputation is absurd. Check it out. When you get off this, like Eskerhart, he's huge in the U.S. He'll put out 300 bottles that he's doing on a homebrew scale, and he'll put it out as a lottery, where you're gonna pay $50 a bottle. There might be 10,000 people that submit trying to order, and I'm gonna pick 300 that get to order it, kind of thing. Like
Jesus.
He's super talented dude. So we're really excited to work from him, and I think that added to the hype to some degree. But the beer was just awesome in our opinion, and I think in the consumer's opinion as well. But it's always been a huge part of what we plan to do. We've always hoped to do it on a really, really high level. Now that we've got 30 barrels or so going, being able to go for this anniversary, be able to go and try them all, pick what we wanted, blend them accordingly, just based on our palates and what we want. Is pretty cool to be able to do that. Now we're at that stage as a brewery. I hope the audience reaction is kind of where we want it to be, but we're super pumped about the beer itself, and excited to release that.
Man, that is awesome. I as soon as you sort of said it, I remember. Funnily enough, I have a friend in Montreal who I kind of used to trade with when I lived there, because he was one of those dudes, kind of what you were talking about earlier when you were doing the heavy trades. So he has a network of proxies everywhere and all this stuff. And I remember him asking me if I could get it for him, because he knew I had Ontario contacts. And I'm like, what's this all about? I don't recall, but now I'm looking at the Untappd stuff. I absolutely remember this from a couple of years ago, and I know the type of person that would sell their grandmother for this type of shit. So that is that's very cool, man. So are you saying, and you don't have to answer this, but are you saying that there are more deciduous variants coming for your 4th anniversary?
For the 4th anniversary, no. We've got different brand built in a very similar way.
Okay.
The way we approach barrel aged stout didn't really change in terms of our base beer. So when we first brewed that beer, deciduous, we had Bobby who came down, and we did a 14, we did a single mash 14-hour boil, something like that. And I remember I put something out on our stories, the amount of beer we consumed during that 14 hours was astronomical. The fact that John our head brewer like had the wherewithal to actually
Brew.
complete a beer at the end and like transfer and pitch yeast and everything he had to do, like unbelievable. Like he passed out in the malt room later on that night.
Poor
But
John.
like, but we've changed our approach. Like the base recipe is the same. We did split to a double mash. It's a little bit more work, but it's a little more efficiency. Instead of doing like a hard, 14-hour boil, we did like a soft, 24-hour boil. So we changed like little things to it, but like the beer itself is very, very similar to deciduous. Different barrel treatments though. So it's like our approach to barley stout is exactly the same. The result is similar, but time and barrel does really cool things. So I think we've plucked the ones that are perfect for where they are right now. Done adjunct treatments that will work off those well. And but we do have, to answer your question, like ask whether we have more deciduous. I've talked to Bobby quite a bit. We want to do that again, just because the audience, I think there's going to be an audience for it. So we'll do another deciduous at some point, just because it'll be cool to do. But we do have another. We brewed a barley wine probably 18 months ago or so with him as well. So that's sitting around in barrels. We're in no rush for that one. With barley wine, I like it to go really long. So wouldn't expect any time real soon, but it's tasting awesome too. So excited about that.
All right.
I'll be anxiously awaiting that.
Yes. But what you're saying about the anniversary stouts is that the same people who lost their collective minds over deciduous will be extremely excited for what's coming with this new brand that was approached in the same way.
Yeah, I would think so. I personally drank the adjuncted version last weekend. Drank the regular version the weekend before that. It's always hard when you're trying your own beer, like because you're thinking so much about it, like about every aspect. Yeah. It's nice to be able to just enjoy the ride. When you're drinking your own beer, that's not the case. You're just hyper analyzing everything. But like, I'm looking at like dissecting it as, being as critical as I possibly can be, and I personally am thinking like it's tasting awesome. So super, super excited about both those. And then the other 8 beers, that we're doing a combination of, IPAs, double IPAs, adjuncted stouts with breweries that we're always, some of them we're working with for the first time, some of them that we've worked with, before, but like doing things we're really excited about, like, and we're on the tail end. We're brewing our last anniversary beer on Tuesday, so we've got a pretty good idea where everything's sitting. They're all tasting really good. Most of like all the labels are done. Ordered the wax in, ordered the glassware. All the it's, as you can imagine, a huge amount of work trying to prepare for these things.
Couldn't imagine.
So we're feeling pretty good. Now it's just a matter of like, in this post-COVID world, getting everyone to show up and be excited about it. And
I kind of feel like, would you say that people are, I mean, first of all, that sounds insane. And if you are nearby and like you need to, like, I feel like I'm going to be in town, so this sounds actually really fucking dope. I've heard from, I swear I was talking to somebody the other day or today or yesterday or like very recently, they were saying that they noticed there's a bit more excitement from people in the post-COVID world to do stuff because, who said this to me today? What was I doing today? Oh yeah, I had a call with a brewery today, and they were telling me that they think that because this is the first post-COVID February, and obviously March too, where everything is open, people are like ready to go.
Yeah, I could see that.
You know what I'm saying? And I was like, oh, that made a lot of sense. And then also when you add to the mix, 1, interprovincial collabs, 2, barrel-aged stouts that are on par with arguably some of the best stouts in the province. Well, it kind of seems like you gotta be there, and people will be excited to be there.
Yeah, I would think so. Like we always make, kind of a week of our anniversary, so a lot of it's customer appreciation kind of leading up to it. So it'll be like, you know, cheap chicken sandwich day, cheap burger day, cheap pint day, like just kind of leading up to it. We do something every day, like just kind of get people in, and then on the Saturday, like we release all the beers. Generally, I think we'll do this again this year. We'll release them all on Saturday, just brewery only, and then on the Sunday, kind of what's left, we'll do
Distro
online. Yeah,
online. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. We've got a bunch of tap takeovers planned too. Like we've reached out to kind of some of our favorite and most loyal licensees, so there'll be that added to the equation as well. But we're a small team, so like I've done all the deliveries until pretty recently. Still doing a good chunk of the deliveries, so like we always add that like we release the beers on Saturday local or at the brewery because on the Sunday I gotta be packing beers all day. So there's like that added to the equation in terms of like who's actually gonna physically do these things. But yeah, and also like especially for the barrel aged beer in particular, we're hoping not to ship a lot of that. Ideally, people are picking it up on the Saturday, and like we're looking at probably 350 bottles of each variant, so not a huge amount of beer to go around. Okay. So yeah, hope people are there on the Saturday and they're excited to pick it up, and we'll reward people in terms of like higher quantity that you can grab at the brewery versus what you could get online, kind of thing. So we want people to come out. Gotcha. We want people to come out on the Saturday.
That makes complete sense. Are you doing any distro, say, to Durand in Hamilton?
I would certainly assume so. Durand's they're awesome, and in Hamilton, for can sales in particular, Chris puts in a huge amount of energy to get into cool stuff, and so he does, yeah. We always for our like our licensees are awesome. We always try to hook them up to the best of our ability.
That's very dope. But I imagine that the bottles probably would be with the volume that you talked about, like it's probably like not going to leave the brewery at that point.
Yeah, like we might do like a case, 12 bottles going to here and there. But like primarily we will try to keep it at the brewery for because we want to reward the people that are coming out, and there's just it's just not a lot
I respect
volume.
that.
I don't think that's unfair at all.
Yeah, and our hope too, like historically, when we want people to come out and kind of hang out for the day and experience the beer, experience the food, experience everything we kind of have to offer, and just experience the excitement too. Like again, like being where we are when we released our first barrel aged beer, like our regulars came out just expecting to show up and get it, and the fact they had to wait in line and do that whole thing, like it wasn't an inconvenience for them. They were just excited to see it. They hadn't seen anything like that. And for me, like that, like I love that. I love that line culture. Like I've done that forever. I love going to like when my brother and like when I said when I first moved home, my brother and I went out to New England. We slept in the treehouse parking lot, and it was the best. Like you wake up and there's 20 other cars there. You're not the only one doing it, and you get up and you start drinking beers together, and it's a cool culture that exists around that, and it's never going to exist probably on the level that I'd like to in Ontario, but if we can foster it to some degree, people have fun with it. It's cool.
Dude, that's so sick. I love that. That's like a real cool. That's almost like a romantic way to look at it. Like romanticizing line culture.
100%.
Shit. Like, it is kind of cool. I've lined up a couple of times for beers, and like it has been a pretty like fun experience. So I can understand sort of it's, and this is here too, not even in the States. I haven't been as dedicated as yourself to go out to different things to line up, but I've always sort of wanted to experience it out there. So it's cool that you are like taking that and just bringing that whole thing out here with like. I was about to say arguably, it's not even arguable, it's like factually world-class beers. not only the things we've been drinking tonight, but obviously like the stouts that people are losing their minds over. I can only imagine what those bad boys go for on secondary.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
had
for sure.
we had a set of deciduous sell for like $1,200 for a it's like a charity raffle, but like still like cool to hear that. Cool to hear that stuff.
Yeah, man. Jesus.
Yeah, like a guy that like as I said, like I trade with people all over the place. I've got a guy in Steve in Anaheim area that we've traded beers forever, and he sent me like a screenshot of his trade group of someone saying like, here's what he's gonna trade for deciduous in Southern California. It's just really cool to see that, and you know
that would be
stuff.
cool.
Yeah, that stuff's neat to see.
Hell yeah, man. With that, shall we do the final and then take her on home?
Yep, let's do it.
This is a style that personally I'm a huge fan of, and I feel like it's one of the most underrated styles in the game. We've had this a few times on the pod recently. We are talking brown ales, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this isn't just a brown ale, though, is it, Greg? This is a brown ale with a twist. God damn it! This fella.
Yeah,
talk to me.
Yeah, it's one of the first beers we did. Like I want to say it was, I don't know, in the top 10 first beers we did, something like that.
Woo!
And
yes.
Yeah, we'd already done, an oatmeal stout at that point, and just thought it'd be a little bit more original to do coffee paired with a brown ale, and just the pairing works really, really well. It's become a rotational series for us, so now every time we brew it, we do it with a different roaster, a different local roaster, a different local coffee.
Oh, that's cool.
But like very, very coffee forward.
Love it.
And yeah, paired with that like caramel biscuity kind of quality that a brown ale has to offer. We like.
Oh man,
the nose is insane.
Yeah, it's wild.
I'm aggressively team brown ale.
The flavor profile in terms of like with a stout, which is much more common, getting more dark chocolate and roasty qualities versus caramel and toffee and a nuttiness. It pairs really, really well with coffee.
Oh, it just smells. It's got absolutely exactly how you just described it. That's how it smells. The caramel, the toffee, and then it's like from a distance.
This is intoxicating.
That's a great word for it. The coffee is almost like it was more pungent as soon as you pop the can, and now it's kind of leveled out a little bit, which is awesome. And this is also with Magma Coffee. I actually haven't heard of them. I'm a big both Nate and I are big like third wave coffee fans. Are they a local guy? The local roaster? Sorry.
Yeah. So the roaster's Black Sheep. They're in Welland. The coffee is the coffee's Magma.
The coffee's Magma roaster Black Sheep. Gotcha.
Correct. Dark roast. Pretty robust. Like we did, as we've progressed in this series, we've gone more like heavy and heavier on the coffee in terms of like an absolute volume, and shorter contact time. So, trying to get like all those like fresh, aromatic, flavorful qualities and keep the astringency down and bitterness down. So, progressing, to capture coffee to the best of our abilities, and I like this version quite a bit.
How many versions have you done?
We've probably done four. Probably our fourth version of Rise.
4. Okay. Why a brown ale? Oh, first of all, cheers. Can we get this in us?
Cheers.
Cheers, y'all. Good Lord. Oh my gosh. I fucking love that.
Oh, that's outstanding.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Brown ales are so underrated. Fucking hell. Why did you choose a brown ale as the base for a coffee beer? And it's even more interesting coming from you, to be honest. Um, the haze guys, the big stout guys. Where did the thinking come from behind that, man?
Yeah, so it was early days. Like this is one of our first, probably inside of the first 6 months, anyways. And yeah, it was something that we hadn't had much of. I still haven't had much of in terms of brown ale, brown coffee.
I had one I could think of.
Yeah,
It's
haven't had much of, and it's just very very complimentary. It just seems like a very nice, and our brew team, they're coffee connoisseurs. Like that's kind of what they do. So, as a marriage of what we want to do with beer and coffee, and how do we showcase coffee to the best of our ability. We do coffee stouts too, but it's a different representation of coffee. Like this is, more of like for us, like a true representation of coffee. Like how can we showcase the coffee and have the beer support that? And we've, like as I mentioned, has become like a rotating series for us. But that base beer, like with those notes, in terms of being like biscuity, caramel, toffee, like they work really really well to kind of elevate coffee. So and also is just trying to be intentional about being a little bit different, like just trying to have a different approach to a coffee beer. People do coffee blondes, they do coffee sours. Like there's a bunch of different ways you can do coffee, but like this was kind of our, what we wanted to try, and we've liked it. We've stuck with it. We've keep playing with it, but it's one that we like a lot.
This is great, man. Honestly.
Like on the first couple sips, the interpretation that I kind of get from this, like what might differentiate this from say a coffee stout, is that this is really kind of letting the coffee shine as the star of the show, and the notes that the brown ale is bringing to it with with those toffee notes, they're a little more subtle, but they're kind of supporting and accentuating coffee notes, whereas a stout is where that's really more the beer is the star of the show, and the coffee is kind of playing a supporting role to it. Whereas I feel like in this, the coffee is really shining, and the beer is is really playing like the good supporting character. Does that align? Do you think?
Yeah, 100%. Like that was the goal, and I do think that happens. And every time we try a different roastery, try different coffee, like we're always blown away by how much that transforms the beer. And I think that the foundation of like being a brown ale and being it's pretty traditional. Like it's pale malt, caramel, a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of biscuit. Like it's a pretty simplistic canvas to work with. It really, that really is the goal, to let the coffee speak, and ideally the foundation of the beer kind of elevate that, add the sweetness it needs, the roundness it needs to be a balanced beer overall. But yeah, it's made the experience of working with different roasteries really interesting, because it just absolutely transforms the beer, and it's rewarding because every time you work with a different roastery, like they're super excited and they want to showcase that beer, or sorry, they want to showcase that coffee. So to be able to feel like we're actually doing that is, it's a cool experience for us.
Yeah, man.
I love that. I could drink this with brunch. Like this is so fucking good.
Yeah, it's very got a lot of cold brew vibes.
Yeah. It is that, right? Like we're literally throwing coarsely ground coffee beans into the beer, and we're cold conditioning. So we are doing that. Like it's
Making
without
cold brew.
water. Yeah, without water. Like you're just using, and then you utilize the alcohol to strip out flavors a little more efficiently as well.
Yeah, I'm sure little, certain things will kind of pop in conjunction with the malt and the other different sort of chemical reactions that are happening in there and stuff. It's like a fascinating way, like to showcase coffee, and like you said, I had one in Quebec City that I'd ever had. It was like a nitro brown with coffee, and that was it. Never had anything like that. That was a few years ago. It's fascinating, man. I think this is like a cool way to do it, and like I mentioned, I feel like I hope brown ales are kind of coming back a little bit. Like I feel like I've seen a few now that have popped up either on pods or just in general. I'm just like, interesting that these breweries are doing brown ales. I hope it becomes a thing. I didn't realize how, I don't know, just how like missed maybe they were until having a few on. I was like, Jesus Christ, like this is fire. Like there's Sankey and Baron in Quebec did one, which is killer. Anderson in London did one on the pod.
Yep.
And now there might have been another one that I'm forgetting, but like it's still very, very, very few and far between. But the ones that we've had have been like really good. And this is even more interesting because it's not just a brown ale; it's a brown ale with coffee, which is just a whole more, whole interesting drinking experience, man. This is dope. What's the response to this, man? People love this, I imagine, since you've made it a series.
Yeah, for like it's been a bit of a cult thing for us. Like, it honestly like it doesn't sell as well as a lot of beers, but like the amount you hear about it, like the volume on it is like when you don't have it available, the people that love it pound your door all the time. So, yeah, like we just make it a little bit smaller now in terms of the batch size, just to like tailor to that audience. But again, it's one of those beers we really, really like. It's always it's fun to do. It's fun to work with local roasteries. We've got one. So there's like a bunch of breweries that have kind of come together to put out a breakfast beer series, which I won't speak too much about because I'll wait for that to be announced. But our version of that is, so we're doing like we've done a beer called, this is Rise. We've done a beer called Rise and Shine, which is like a higher alcohol, 7.5% brown ale in the past. So our version of the beer that we're doing for that, which will be in a week or two, we did like we're calling it a dark, or I think we're calling it blended dark ale, I think is what I called it. Where we did like it's like 50% brown ale, 30% imperial stout, 20% double stout. It's a blend of like some base dark beers that we had with whiskey barrel aged coffee, maple, vanilla, cinnamon. The goals like French toast, coffee, kind of breakfast vibe with that.
I fucking love that.
and it turned out really, really well. So we got that packaged already. We're just not releasing it for a week or two, but like that'll be, if you guys like this, it'll be in the same realm with some other stuff going on. But like it's the first time we were blended, unaged, unbarrel aged beers, which was a cool thing in itself. Just blending base brown ale and imperial stout, and came out really cool. First time working with like barrel aged coffee beans as well, which offers its own quality to a beer.
Yep.
Man, that is fascinating. So I mean, by the time this comes out, so it'd be kind of like a week and a half from when they're recording. Maybe it'd be pretty close.
Yeah, I think 10 days, something like that.
Okay. This will probably come out within about the same amount of time. So by the time people hear this, it might be around the release date. So keep an eye out. That's fascinating. That's super cool, man.
Yeah.
Man, this is awesome. I feel like I know I'm looking at the time. I know we're coming up on 3 hours, but this was like such a dope conversation. We had to keep it going. I'm
Absolutely.
conscious of everybody's time, and I know you guys have little human beings in the home that will stop your slumber, and I absolutely don't want to keep you guys too much longer. But was there anything else we want to touch on before we wrap this bad boy up?
No,
Anything?
I don't think so. Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. Like much like you guys, when we hang up here, I'm probably gonna have another beer and hang out on the couch for a bit. So it's not like I really have anywhere to be. But no, yeah, no, it's cool. I've been looking forward to the call and hanging out with you guys. So appreciate you guys having me here.
Oh hell yeah, man! Likewise, dude. Like I said, I've heard only exceptional things about you and everything that you guys are doing. And tonight, I think really proved it, man. I think this is like a really fantastic lineup of beers, and just to let people know. I mean, once again, this one just scratches the surface of what you do. Obviously, you got the whole sour side, the whole crispy side in a deeper volume, and also now like these barrel aged stuff. Like, there's a lot that you guys are doing. The anniversary stuff just sounds like mind blowing. So I mean, the date, just to remind everybody, the date for the anniversary is Saturday, March 4th.
Correct. I'll send you guys over some of our barrel aged stout as well. You guys
Oh
let me know
man.
what you think. I think you're gonna like it, but yeah, I'll make sure we get some into your hands for sure.
Oh man, that would
Oh, I'd
be
love that.
yeah. Honestly, like this is crazy because it sort of put two and two together because I actually forgot that my friend, when I still lived in Montreal, was asking me about deciduous, and then sort of bringing it all together. So now hearing that story, um, great stuff, man. Like you're doing some really cool shit that I think is really important for the scene in Ontario, man. And I think it takes a person like you who, like, what I mean is in like you're one of us, as in like you're just a, a beer fan who did what he needed to do to get the best beer, and then you're replicating that in your own space in Niagara Falls, and I just think that's like so sick. Um, because it's like you understand the culture, you are of the culture, you are that, like you are the person that you're serving, and you're really like taking that to a higher level, and then adding the higher level of food as well to that, and really creating curating an experience and giving people just fire across the board. And as a fellow drinker in this glorious province and country, we're grateful to you, man, and like for doing this shit, man. It's very very cool, man. You should be very proud. It's been very cool just to kind of get this whole snapshot, and I think this is what and I could probably speak for Nate too. Like, enjoy about this is to sort of learn a lot more about the brewery, get that full story whilst drinking the beer, and it's sort of like, man, it just really puts it all in perspective for us. And you can really, and I hope it does the same for the viewers and listeners as well, just to be like, this is what Counterpart is about, and like this is what you can expect when you head by. And now I'm just the next goal is to get by for some beer and food. God damn it!
Absolutely. Yeah, it's Greg. It's really been a genuine pleasure to like to have you on and to hear more of the story of the brewery. To like, we both had some of your beers before, and to have a bunch more back to back tonight has been a real treat.
True.
And to kind of hear what what the brewery's about, your philosophy, everything, like everything around how you're kind of going about your business, and and how you serve your customers, and what it kind of delivers to the scene is it's really inspiring stuff. And I think you're like C said, you're doing really good things for the scene, and we can't wait to see what's coming, and we're really excited to see what those anniversary releases are going to be.
For sure. No, yeah, appreciate the hell out of you guys. Really, really cool to be on the show today. It's something that hope to do for a long time. So and be able to spend the time just shooting the shit. Really cool for me personally. So yeah, appreciate what you guys do for the beer scene as well. Keep things perpetuating and moving. And yeah, if you ever want to do it again, if you ever want to stop at the brewery, can't wait to see you guys.
Both of the
Absolutely.
above. Yeah, man. We love doing the regular sort of like catch-ups. Whenever it may be, usually 6 to 18 months in between. Basically whenever you want. If you're like, hey man, I got some shit popping, like, boom, let's jump on, let's get it going. Like, we're absolutely down. And the great thing, Nate's parents are pretty close by where I live, and Nate comes out here somewhat regularly. So one of our things is every time Nate's in town, we'll try and like hit somewhere together if we're able to. So we'll definitely keep you posted. If we're able to make it down, man. And even like my partner and I, we're pretty close to, like, obviously it's like whatever. How far is it from Hamilton to Niagara Falls? Like, I actually haven't
45.
done it. 45? Boom. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Okay. So we can make that happen one of the times I'm in Burlington. That's an easy drive.
Yeah, man. Fuck, that would be
Yeah,
sick.
I think you guys could probably be there for the anniversary if you wanted to be.
I feel
I
like
think we could probably make that happen.
yeah, I feel like I could make that happen.
We could probably carve out a space for you.
Okay. If you're able to, please don't go out of your way. But if you're able to, I'm gonna keep you posted. But I'm gonna keep you posted. So, Greg, I'm gonna wrap this up, but stick around after the call, and we'll chat it up for a little bit. But once again, thank you, brother, for taking the time and for being so generous tonight. This has been an honor. Nate and I love this. Where can everybody find Counterpart Brewing online and in person?
Yeah, so our certainly come to the brewery. You know, that's what we do. That's where we put the vast majority of our energy in terms of having people in our space. But outside of that, Instagram, Counterpart Brewing. Same with our website. But yeah, at the end of the day, if you can get to the brewery, that'd be we'd like to see you.
Hell yeah, love it. Just before I get to you on that, Nate, let's take the screenshot. I'm gonna take a screenshot for the thumbnail here. Do you want to hold up some cans? Ooh, which am I gonna hold up? Ooh.
Decisions.
I know. I'm just like, ooh. Let me see if I can get 3 in my little palms here. There we go. All right. Y'all ready? Glorious. All right, Nathaniel, where can everyone find you online, sir?
So you can find me everywhere at NathanDoesBeer and right here co-hosting BAOS podcast.
Yeah, gosh darn right. Everyone, thank you for watching and listening. This was a genuinely fantastic pod. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit the notification bell, Nathaniel.
Ding.
So you know when the new drops. Follow us everywhere at BOS Podcast. We drop the pods every Wednesday. The audio goes live about 7 a.m. So if you are commuting, you will have some fresh new conversations to carry you over. And we drop the videos in the evening around 8 p.m. Is there anything else? Oh yeah, throw us a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you feel so inclined. If you think the conversations are worth it, I think they are, because it's not about me or Nate. It's about Greg. It's about the guests. It's about the breweries that we're trying to shed some light on and just really show some love to, guys. So if you enjoy it, please let us know. We will see y'all in the next episode. Cheers.
Cheers.